Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the February 28th, 2022 Fayetteville City Council meeting, the last day of February. Also, final day of Black History Month, so great month, great meetings, and we'll look to continue the progress. At this time, we'll go to invocation. Pastor Councilman Jones, you'd like to give us the invocation?
Sure. Father, we thank you now for this opportunity which you've given us once again to come before you. We ask that you endow us and endue us with the wisdom, the knowledge that we need to make the decisions on behalf of the city. We thank you that we are a team that is efficient, functional, and Father, we are being excellent stewards over the money that is allotted to this particular city. And we thank you now for this particular meeting on tonight, that we will make the decisions that need to go forth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not a good shot there.
All right.
That's a great shot.
All right, Council. All right.
Thank you for wearing blue.
All right, item 4.0, the announcements and recognitions. We do have some very important announcements and recognitions, so start out by going to Councilmember Ingram.
Oh, me already. Okay. Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I didn't know I would be going so fast. So I did want to just bring some exciting news to the city of Fayetteville residents and hope that we can all give a round of applause over the weekend and actually out the course of the CIAA 2022 championship tournaments. Fayetteville State University, HBCU, was able to bring home numerous titles for championship, and which are volleyball, men's basketball, cross country, and indoor track. But I do want to hone in on the men's basketball. This has been a title that they were able to reclaim after 49 years. Last night, there was a celebration to welcome home our Broncos, And there was a member from that 1971-72 basketball team that came to honor and celebrate them. And us as a community, as a body, I think this is the prime opportunity to celebrate them and honor their achievement. And so while we look at these young minds playing these sports, for them, it's larger than sports. For them, it may be, saving their lives, and it may be how they're able to pay for college. So we want to give a round of applause and a standing ovation to Fayetteville State University's athletics, please.
Uncle Pratt. All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jensen? Oh, Councilmember Jones, you had something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that sent well wishes over for my wife. She is recovering well, so I just want to say thank you to the council, thank you to the community in that regards. Thank you.
Thank you. Best wishes to your wife for a speedy recovery. This time we'll go to Transit Drivers Appreciation Proclamation. And is Mr. Hume here, or is he on Zoom?
He actually has some of his transit drivers here.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I think they're on Zoom. Okay, so can you pull them up? Are you guys here from Transit, representing Transit?
I am working on that right now.
All right, well, welcome, guys. This is a very special occasion. We would like to just give some accolades to the members of Transit Department for the hard work that you do. In light of that, I've prepared a proclamation that reads as follows. Whereas Transit Driver Appreciation Day has been designated to recognize transit drivers across the nation for their skill, hard work, customer service, and dedication to improving the quality of life in communities they serve. And whereas this year's events will be observed on Friday, March the 18th, 2022, and whereas the day raises awareness for frontline transit employees who move our community forward by connecting people to jobs, educational institutions, medical facilities, leisure activities, and to the Fort Bragg military base. And whereas fast bus drivers have proven they are valued and essential to Fayetteville, providing safe and secure travel to over 3.8 million passengers since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas fast drivers daily demonstrate their ability to multitask in order to maintain a schedule, greet passengers, give directions, announce stops, remember stop requests, ensure social distancing, and more, all while safely maneuvering an extra-large vehicle through an unpredictable traffic and adverse weather conditions. It says, whereas fast drivers also recognize other transit employees who provide vehicle maintenance, route and dispatch assistance, and other assistance behind the scenes. Now, therefore, I, Mitch Colvin, Mayor of the City of Fayetteville, and on behalf of the Fayetteville City Council, do hereby proclaim the 18th day of March 2022 to be Transit Driver Appreciation Day in our city. Guys, we thank you for the hard work you do. We thank you for all that you do that we see and don't see. The citizens of Fayetteville, thank you, and the City Council. Did you all have any remarks you'd like to give? Or?
Hello. I am the Employee of the Year, Ms. Teresa Elabory. Can you hear me? I'd just like to say that my ADA family is a big part of this City of Fayetteville transportation. And I want ADA to get a little more love from the city. Thank you.
All right.
Noted.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on being the Employee of the Year. Absolutely, ADA is an important part of our community. Thank you for the work you do. So we'll prepare this and send this over. Thank you. Council, at this time, we will, I'll turn over to Mayor Pro Tem for a special announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if the ladies would like to join me up at the podium. And our city attorney and all the attorneys. If y'all would like to join me. Chief of Staff, Chief, Jody, come on. Pam, if you'd like to join us. Jennifer, if we can do it without. So, good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and my fellow council members. As everybody might not know, but we are going to make you aware of, is that it is going to be Women's Month in March, and we are going to kick it off tonight on February 28th. For those of you that do not know, women's equality starts off, the colors are green, white, and purple. I did the green and white for those of you that know me. Purple's a hard thing for me, but Councilmember Kinston came with me with her green. So I'm going to read the proclamation that the mayor so graciously wrote for us. Whereas March is a National Women's History Month and March 8th, 2022 is International Women's Day. Whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement and the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which creates a fair and just society for all. And whereas women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every aspect of life, and as whereas women in every race, class, ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city in countless record and unrecorded ways. Whereas women have played a unique role throughout history by providing the majority of volunteer labor force, and particularly important, the establishment of early charitable, philanthropical, and cultural institutions in the United States. And whereas women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas women make up the majority of American essential workers and work tirelessly to help families in our communities and our country afloat. And whereas, despite these contributions, the role of a woman in history has been consistently overlooked, undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. I'm going to repeat that. Whereas, despite their contributions and the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked, undervalued in the literature, teaching, and studying of American history. And I thank you for writing this for us to be able to be up here. And whereas Her Fayetteville is a cohort designed by women, for women, creating strategic partnerships and collaborating to initiate a network of support and infrastructure to continue the leadership progression of women in family, in career, and in community and business. Whereas the mission of Her Fayetteville is to celebrate, empower, and develop women through education, networking, mentoring, and partnership to promote opportunities for all women throughout Fayetteville and focus on heart, equality, and resilience, celebrating International Women's Day and Women's History Month. Now, therefore, I, Mitch Colvin, Mayor of the City of Fayetteville, North Carolina, on behalf of the City Council and 208,000 citizens, do hereby honorably proclaim the month of March, the year 2022, the week of March 17th through the 11th, as Her Fayetteville and Her Week. I call upon the residents of Fayetteville to observe March as Women's History Month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, and to support Her Fayetteville movement and Her Week celebrations. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand the cause of the Great Seal of the City of Fayetteville to be affixed the 28th day of February 2022. Mitch Colvin, Mayor. Thank you. And thank you, ladies, for standing with me.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, and all of you all. It's something we can say for sure. None of us will be here without the help of a woman. That's for sure. And so the importance and the significance cannot be explained enough. So thank you for what you do, and look forward to wonderful Women's History Month and your contributions to the council, to the city, and to our country. So with that, I'll go to Councilmember Ingram. You have a proclamation?
Yes, I do, Mayor. I also like to acknowledge Councilmember here for joining us. Good evening, sir. So thank you, Mayor Colvin, for this proclamation on behalf of Mayor City Council. The proclamation reads, whereas Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, noted scholar and son of former slaves, initiated Black History Week in 1926. As part of the nation's bicentennial in 1976, it was expanded and established at Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. Whereas through bravery, perseverance, faith, and resolve, often in the face of prejudice and hardship, African Americans have fought for equality, representation, and respect. And whereas during Black History Month, we honor the many extraordinary achievements and contributions made by African Americans throughout history to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas during the month of February, our nation takes time to reflect on the injustices and struggles fought and overcome by African Americans, and to pay tribute to the battles that have fought in the name of equality. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls out attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas the city of Fayetteville strives to be an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, and future, are represented, respected, and recognized for the contributions and potential contributions to our community, the state of North Carolina, the country, and the world. And whereas our city is strengthened by its citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. This month, we celebrate the cultural heritage, contributions, accomplishments, and spirit of African Americans. Now, therefore, I, Mitch Colvin, Mayor of the City of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Fayetteville in the year 2022 to be Black History Month in the All-American City of Fayetteville. And I urge all citizens to join us in this observance of our diverse heritage and culture. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the Great Seal of the City of Fayetteville to be affixed this second day of February 2022, Mayor Mitch Colvin. And I would like to also extend a gratitude to my colleagues here at Council, as I recognize that we are in a unique position where we are a historical council in two different ways, as we celebrate Women's History Month by having the most women to serve and also the most African Americans to serve. While it's not been easy, it has been an experience and a joy to have served with you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Hare?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo that great man that she spoke of, Carter G. Woodson, a very great man, but also a mega man for starting the Black History Week that now goes to the Black History Month. So I just wanted to also acknowledge him for his position as an Omega man. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Hare, really? All right. And have a final proclamation that certainly last is certainly not least. We have a really important partner in our community in times of crisis and trouble. The Red Cross is there for people from house fires to natural disasters. So we have a proclamation we would like to read, and I think have a member of Red Cross on the line. Okay. Good evening, sir. The City Council, I've prepared a proclamation on behalf of the city and the City Council, and it reads as follows. It says, whereas the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter was established April 26, 1917, in response to a call from President Woodrow Wilson after the start of World War I to assist and comfort communities stricken by disaster, large and small, and to help the able-bodied and the disabled veterans and civilians overseas. And whereas the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter provides services to local military personnel and their families, including 24/7 emergency messaging, assisting military members and their families through pre-deployment and post-deployment briefings and seminars. And whereas the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter continues to partner with the city and the county government, civic agencies to ensure our communities are more ready and resilient in the face of future disasters. And whereas each year the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter provides shelter, clothing, food, and counsel to hundreds of area families who experience home fires and other disasters such as tornadoes and floods. Whereas the American Red Cross plays a vital role in relief operations by deploying volunteers to rebuild communities that are hit by disasters, by providing critical support and resources at home and across the nation. And whereas each year the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter trains thousands of local citizens to lead safer and healthier lives through life-saving skills from swimming and lifeguarding to first aid, CPR, and AED. And whereas each year the American Red Cross Sandhills chapter helps to collect, test, and distribute thousands of life-saving units of blood and blood products. Whereas our city's leadership relies upon our citizens who are motivated to act by common humanity, this month, let us come together and celebrate Fayetteville's spirit of generosity and dedicated individuals and organizations who keep that spirit alive. Now, therefore, I, Mitch Colvin, Mayor of the City of Fayetteville, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of March in 2022 American Red Cross Month in our all-American city, and I encourage our citizens to join in this observance. So we thank you so much, sir, for the work you do, for the work of your organization, and the many, many times that our community has needed your help. You guys have been right there, so thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, and the floor is yours.
A lot of words on a proclamation, but it's fair to say that the Red Cross is doing its mission since 1917, founded in downtown Fayetteville. So every president since FDR has proclaimed that, and it's a chance for us to celebrate our volunteers, our blood donors, our financial donors, and our community partners. With our 2 offices on Fort Bragg, we're serving our military members in Womack Hospital and Green Ramp as they deploy right now, and our resiliency classes, and then our our Carroll Street office right off Bragg Boulevard, our disaster. We dodged a hurricane, but we had 213 Cumberland County families that experienced a home fire, and so we were able to help them. And then our blood donors, the community's really stepped up to help this, during COVID, this critical need for blood. A couple shout outs for the city of Fayetteville, and first is our Fayetteville Fire Department. They've continued to partner up with us during COVID to install smoke alarms and make homes safer. And then our Parks and Recreation Department, during COVID, we were able to work with the Smith Recreation Center to open up and do blood drives, and through commissioners, county, city council members, DJ Hare and Davis, we were able to do blood drives to celebrate Sickle Cell Awareness Month. They mobilized 100 Black Men of America and Megas. We've already heard about the Megas, but the Megas stepped up and helped us with that. So the Red Cross is about our community, and our community's really stepped up, and for that we appreciate it, and we stand ready to do it for the next 100 and some years. So thank you for your proclamation. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the work. Councilmember Banks, McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Harris, for those who are listening, can you provide them with some contact information if they're interested in volunteering or supporting?
Great. RedCross.org is a place to start your volunteer journey with us. We value your talent and talent. You can go to redcross.org or 1-800-RED-CROSS. We've got a volunteer team that will reach out to you, understand what your time availability is and your skills, and we'd love to put you to work in our community, because it's basically neighbor helping neighbor. Like a blood drive, it's not the Red Cross that needs the blood, it's the patients in need. So thank you for that. We'd love to get you involved.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilmember. At this time, Council will move to 5.0 City Manager's Report. Mr. Manager, you have anything? No, sir. All right. Moving right along to 6.0 is the approval of the agenda. Council, can we have a motion to approve?
Mayor, I had a question.
Let me catch this motion. I'll come to it. There's a motion by Councilmember Kinston and seconded by Councilmember Dawkins. Discussion, Councilmember Ingram.
Mr. Manager, is this where we ask for the administrative items to go to work session?
I said,
Councilmember Kingston, is that?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda under item number.
I don't think we voted on the.
yeah. So we have a motion on the
Go ahead.
floor that you made, seconded by Councilmember Dawkins. Any discussion on the motion to approve? I understand that there are
Okay.
some. Would you like to amend that or add some specifics to it?
I can do a separate motion. I can do a separate motion.
Okay.
Okay.
It should be later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Approving the agenda is
Okay.
just
Right.
solidifying what we have. I think your instructions concerning the administrative reports is to send it.
Mine is just to approve the agenda. We haven't gotten to the administrative portion to pull it yet. So mine is just to approve the agenda
Right.
for this evening.
Okay. Okay. All right, Council, we have a motion by Councilmember Kinston, seconded by Councilmember Dawkins to approve the agenda. We've had discussion on the motion. All those in favor, show of hands. All right, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous by those voting. Motion carries. Mayor Pro Tem, you were saying something before we go to consent?
City Manager, I was under the impression, and I think that we might have skipped it, that we were supposed to have a shell council about Fayetteville before we went on. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
We can, with the council's permission,
So this was an announcement that should have took place under the announcement?
take the mask off, please, I can't hear you. Yes, sir.
Or speak up that if you don't feel comfortable.
It's not an issue for me, but the, it should have gone under announcements. Is Rebecca still here?
She's right over there.
All right, Ms. Rebecca, can you come give us a briefing on that issue before we go to consent?
Thank you, Ms. Street, man.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the proclamation. We appreciate that. I'm just going to speak very briefly about her Fayetteville, her week. This event is really in celebration of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, which is on March 8th. We have partnered with quite a few of the communities, community partnerships, sorry, and most importantly with our SEED, that's the Center for Economic Empowerment and Development. And they have helped kind of pull this whole thing together. Again, it's really a celebration of the HER is H-E-R, and it means Heart, Equality, and Resilience. You're going to see that it's a week-long celebration. I've passed out a few flyers. Part of that is going to be both virtual and in-person. We have 2 in-person events. One's March 7th. It's Her Fayetteville Brunch. You'll see that on the back of the flyer. We have another one called Her Pitch. That's March 10th. And this is super exciting for the city. This is where we step in. We have some funds coming from our Economic and Community Development Department, who are also partnering with SEED to support local women businesses and their pitch. It's kind of like the Shark Tank, where you come and you give a pitch and you can earn up to $10,000. The rest of that, you'll see Her Story, Her Health, and Her Business, which are all virtual. And you can get more information at herweek.org. That's herweek.org. And we just wanted to make sure that council was comfortable with everything that we have going on that week, and that I know that you'll fully support that. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I just did have questions for some of the activities. Those are not just for women only. Other people can attend.
Anybody
right?
can celebrate.
All
It's
right.
a celebration of Women's History and International Women's Day.
Just trying to
Anyone
make sure
can
we
help
know.
us celebrate.
All right. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, council, as we move on to consent, item 7.0 is consent. Can we have a motion to approve, or if, I think there were 1 or 2 modifications. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would like to pull 7.02.
Okay. Was there other items?
I think that was it.
Okay. All right. So Councilman Wright, with your motion, can you approve with exception of 7.02?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the exception to pull 7.02.
All right. There's a motion by Councilmember Wright to approve with the exception of 7.02. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion on the motion to approve consent? All right. Show of hands. Those in favor? All right. Madam Clerk, it's unanimous. I'm sorry. Council members Hare and Jones. I see you, Councilmember Hare. Jones. Okay. All right. So, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous by those voting. Item 7.02, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask council to pull 7.02 and bring back a revised seal of the logo to see it, to take the city of off and do the North Carolina, and maybe in 2 or 3 different ways.
All right. So there's a motion to send this item back to the designers for other concepts. Well, not other concepts, but a revision to the instructions about the city of peace. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wright? Okay. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Council, I'll look to you for your votes. All right. Madam Clerk, it's unanimous by those voting. Motion carries. Item 8.0, staff reports, federal advocacy agenda. Mr. Lindsay.
Good evening, members of council. I am happy to introduce to you some people that probably don't need introductions to you, but Leslie Mozingo is here. Debbie Bryant is here as well. Ron Ham is virtually with us. They're going to talk about our federal agenda and the upcoming National League of Cities Conference and field any questions from you. So I'm going to turn the time over to them.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good to see everybody. Hello, hello. It's been 2 years, right, since the National League of Cities. We were there. We were talking about how things were getting a little bit crazy, and then they got crazy. And that's exactly how it happened. We were worried about bumping elbows and then everything just kind of went apart from there. Very briefly, just for the purposes of your listeners and otherwise, my name's Leslie Mazingo. I'm the owner and CEO of Strategics Consulting. I have with me my colleagues Debbie Bryant and Ron Ham virtually. We are your federal advocates, and we are we've been in this business for 30 years. We very much appreciate the fact that you have trusted us with your advocacy needs at the federal level. We have had some successes along the way. COVID also threw kind of, some curveballs in there for us, but we've been working around those as well. We have some really exciting news about things that are upcoming. One of the things y'all have probably been hearing about, such as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which shows 5 years of infrastructure funding, a big majority of which goes directly to localities. So we've been dissecting that and working with Adam and Rebecca and Jay and others in your leadership to start matching up which grants go well with which projects. So you'll be hearing more about that as the time goes on. And I am actually North Carolina based with an office in Washington. We share office space on Capitol Hill. Y'all have been there before. Last year, we spent some time in the conference room. We'll probably get to do that again. I'm going to stop there for a moment. Like I said, I'm the North Carolina-based Washington lobbyist, and Debbie goes back and forth, and Ron goes back and forth, so we keep it all covered. But let me give Debbie a moment to introduce herself, and then we'll talk about the materials.
Thank you, Leslie. Good evening, and it's great to be with you again. Leslie and I worked for Fayetteville several years ago, and so we're delighted to be back on contract with you. I grew up near Winston-Salem, other side of Winston-Salem, and then went to school in Raleigh before moving to Washington. And I've been up there almost 40 years, but I keep my roots in North Carolina, coming back and forth to D.C. and to the family farm. We worked years ago to begin the development of the Military Business Park. It's exciting to see the development that's going on there. I worked on the Defense Security Technology Accelerator that was originally on Ramsey Street and then moved out to the Military Business Park. And I also worked with Methodist University, building out their physician's assistance program, a cybersecurity program, and a simulation center that focused on public safety. Clients of mine have included the North Carolina Rural Center, the Biotech Center, the North Carolina Association of the Technology Association, Global Transpark, the State Ports Authority. So because I come from a governor's office, and I spent about 10 years working for Governor Jim Hunt, and the best job I ever had in the public sector was director of his Washington, D.C. office during the Clinton administration, and had to learn appropriations the hard way through hurricane recovery, doing both Hurricanes Fran and Floyd. So that tells you about how old I am. It is a pleasure to be back on board. I focus on more of the economic development pieces and keeping those contacts with folks that are in Raleigh, and many of the people that are in Washington, D.C., have that experience, that North Carolina experience. And so that's kind of my connection. Leslie and Ron are really the local government experts, and I sort of hover with the defense and the economic development portion. So again, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ron, you're on screen. You want to take a few moments and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. Ron Ham here. I've been a federal lobbyist for over 26 years. I think I've worked with Leslie probably about 20 plus of those, and as well as with Debbie. I first began my life in public service working for city council out in the city of San Diego. I was working for the vice mayor, then went ahead and did some time in county government as well, working for a county supervisor, transitioned to Washington, and was able to begin an advocacy career focused on local governments. So that was cities and counties in California, but found my way working in probably up to a dozen different states, working with local governments as well as higher education clients. Happy to be back working, of course, with the city of Fayetteville as a North Carolina native, educated in the state of North Carolina. It's a pleasure to work on behalf of communities in the state. Also work with Cumberland County as well, so leading that effort for them up here in Washington too. My focus is really on the housing economic development side, infrastructure as well, technology issues too. But I think in our line of work, almost every issue is your issue. So I've enjoyed working with your staff quite a bit, whether it's been on the choice neighborhoods, we worked on some public safety issues as well as dealing with EPA on environmental issues. So I'm very happy again to be before you tonight and look forward to answering any questions that you may have and seeing you in Washington in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Ron. I noticed Ron and Debbie are trying to age me. They kept talking about all these decades of work, and so I started younger than they did, I think, is probably what occurred. In any case, we wanted to give y'all just a quick overview, especially for your new council members, some background on what we do. So it's time for a National League of Cities again, and we wanted to come in this evening to do a couple of things with you, if you don't mind. So first, just to let you know that similar to the plan of before, we will have a preliminary briefing the night before your meetings where we will go over the schedule, finalize the talking points, and answer any questions you might have as is, that sort of final review before we go in. You will have, ample opportunity to get very comfortable with the presentations. We are still working on the schedule in terms of getting things set up. We're going to be finalizing it with the Mayor Pro Tem, having her look it over and give her approval. And one of the things, though, that I want to forewarn you about in terms of scheduling, things are still different right now. COVID does still have a big impact. In D.C. in particular, the federal agencies are not open for in-person meetings. So what we will be doing is following up sometime after we get back from DC, we will do virtual meetings with the federal agencies to talk about the things that we're working on this year. So that's going to make the schedule a little bit lighter. Now, the good news about the schedule being a little bit lighter is there's also heightened security on Capitol Hill, so we need more time to get between meetings in and out of the buildings. We're not able at this point to walk in a building and move around within the building. You go in with an escort, you go back out, you go through layers of security to go back in another building. So we're gonna need more time for that. So we're in the process of getting that done. We will have those meetings on the Hill. We will have all your talking points ready for you. And like I said, we will have that preliminary discussion. One of the things that we wanted to do this evening also is to bring to you, it's labeled as the Federal Advocacy Agenda. It is part of the talking points. It's really a combination of the things you have approved in the past as part of a federal agenda. Many of the same items repeated because not all of the items are finished. Many of the items are ongoing, but with enough flexibility, as you'll notice, for example, under the general funding, general federal funding and grants, the very first thing it says is advocate for the city's competitive grants. And the reason for that is, without going into too much detail on every single grant, which we don't know just yet every grant you're going to want to go after, and there might be new ones that come up. We still have a Build Back Better plan on the Senate side that may get addressed in some components that'll have additional funding opportunities. And our theory is we don't leave any sofa cushion unturned, okay? We want to find every opportunity there is. And so in order to do that, we need that flexibility to go back to the delegation and say, here's another grant that we need your support for. And your delegation does work very hard on your behalf, and they are very supportive of the efforts that we make, and they make these things happen with their support. So anyway, we keep that flexibility, but otherwise you're going to see overall things that support the community in Fort Bragg, public safety, as well as public infrastructure, that Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, quality of life, and economic development efforts. And again, I believe you have received this and hopefully have had a chance to review it. We wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with this framework. And again, I want to reassure you that this is a working document. It is not the only time that you could have input. If new things come up that need the attention and the council has the support, by all means, we will work on that. And, just as a quick example, I will remind you, 2 years ago, when we were walking around Washington with our approved agenda, at that point in time, it didn't have the word COVID in it. because we had approved the agenda at a time before we knew COVID was going to be an issue. Then we spent the entire year spending a great majority of our time advocating for the local relief funding, the ARP dollars that you now have in place. But we spent the majority of the year on COVID. So we do adjust as necessary based on the issues that are most pressing. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Ms. Mozingo. Did just have one question, well, two, really. Ron, you didn't tell me you were Alpha. You would have caught another Uber that day in D.C. So I remember that next time.
I know you're a good Kappa man, so when I see you,
All right.
yeah,
I know.
Divine Brothers. How about that?
All right, good deal. So, question for you guys as they're working through infrastructure dollars and they're working through Build Back Better and some of the things that have been approved, not things that they're still debating. How do you see, because I heard you say something, Ron, about environmental resources. We have a place called TextFi that we've been trying to get cleaned up. You're very familiar with it. It's been on the books for a while, and we really need some EPA or some federal funding to help accelerate that. Wanted to kind of hear about what you know in that respect, and also for housing, economic development. I know that's been a big thing, but we have a tremendous housing deficit here for workforce housing, so kind of want to hear about that.
Yes, sir. On the TextFi plant, actually, I was noticing some articles that you had about this recently, and it was something I know has been on the books a long time because Debbie and I worked on it probably a decade ago, and it made me want to call Doug and say, or Mr. Hewitt, excuse me, Mr. Manager, and call him and say, we're still working on TextFi, But the good news is, as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Brownfields received a substantial increase in funding, so I do think there's even more grants that are going to become available for that. We are working again to circle back around and make a connection, as you'll know from when we met before. We met with the good folks at EPA. They are on the schedule, whether it probably won't be in person, as I said, probably virtual, but to give them that update so that we can get them up to speed on that project. Okay. So it is on the list of priorities, and we definitely want to make sure that we take advantage of that increased funding and get something done on that plant. Ron, do you mind addressing housing, please, sir?
Well, very happy to do that. So, Mayor Colvin, I think one of the things in terms of housing is that even with the Biden administration coming in, there have been increases in the traditional housing programs through the appropriations process. Of course, the FY 2022 bill is still pending. Hopefully Congress can work that out and we'll see those increases. So you have the normal annual appropriation cycle. So there are some increases there. The bigger pieces, though, are tied into the Build Back Better Act. You're talking about $150 billion in affordable housing opportunities. Of course, that is pending. We're hopeful that some of those pieces can be taken out, whatever they negotiate, if they can get to any kind of bill, that some of that would be included in whatever the final bill is. I mean, you're talking about rental assistance, public housing, and then there are a slew of other provisions in terms of even green preservation of housing, more dollars through the home investment program. One of the other key things that exists now, though, too, is the National Housing Trust Fund, which is a form of grant program that's administered by the states. And a state, for instance, can choose to administer their own program, can administer their own program, or designate someone within the state to do that. So there are $700 million in National Trust Fund dollars for 2021. It's estimated this year that it could be about $739 million in 2022. So that's, again, for property acquisition, site improvements, the preservation of affordable housing. So that can be accessed, and I'm not sure, I know when we talked to your staff, they were interested in us advocating for additional funds. I will tell you that we're talking about another $15 billion possibly for that program through Build Back Better. I would say this about housing. No matter how any of this goes, I think you're going to continue to see increases across the board because of the issue we deal with of affordable housing and homelessness. I will tell you that this administration, those have been two areas, even in the in the pending bills for appropriations, which is separate from Build Back Better, that they put increases into. So I would say of the two things, it's going to be a lot of action will be in the homelessness area, looking at how they could better serve homeless families as well as homeless veterans. And then the whole affordable housing piece. So there are resources. What I do think I would say too is we would definitely recommend, and we've been talking with your staff about meeting with HUD to talk about some of the issues that we face locally, and then also to connect, to put a face on what you face there locally, and then also to discuss the resources that would be the best matches for the issues that you face in the city of Fayetteville.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. There's one thing I meant to mention too, and I apologize. Mr. Lindsay reminded me. I appreciate that. Also, we are working. We've been asked to. We're under contract with the PwC, and we know they're doing a pilot study on TextFi, which we think helps. And they came to us in large part because of the work we're doing with the city and with the county. We see it as a great partnership opportunity. Now, you all own the land, so that will make a difference when it comes to a brownfields application. But again, we're going to be helping, in addition to looking for resources, we're going to be helping to coordinate how to get those organizations all working together and supporting one another. So if one organization is the better applicant, working with them to apply, and y'all support their application and vice versa. So when it comes to TextFi, I think that was mentioned. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. I just wanted to make sure I made that point.
No, I appreciate that information. Councilmember Ingram.
Thank you.
And then here.
Thank you both for being here. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I have two things. The first I want to talk about is our affordable housing study, which I find myself looking at it every week. In Goal 2, which talks about expand and supply affordable housing options. So 2.1 talks about the Housing Trust Fund, which I was big on discussing with the council. Are you saying, I just want to make sure I'm understanding, are you saying that when those funds do come available, that's something we could utilize towards this goal? I see a head
Yes.
nod. Okay. Thank you.
The Housing Trust Fund and the Home Program is another program that you can use as well. As a matter of fact, the way the National Housing Trust Funds are actually, they tie that to the Home Program.
Okay, thank you. That's pretty much what I was looking for. So secondly, we in January recently supported a railway study that will connect us to our system, the triangle, pretty much. And the study that we chose to look further into was, I believe, the Eastern Corridor. But within that study, it told us there was not reach to the train station. And I'm asking because you don't know what you don't know. When we look at having to need to move or do some type of work towards a train station, is that a federal ask? Because I know railway laws are kind of up there with God. So I'm trying to figure out which, when we're talking about that and we're looking at the study, moving forward, should we be building that within this conversation for a federal advocacy?
At the risk of answering the question incorrectly and giving you bad information, with your permission, I'd like to ask the management to help me with additional information.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the rail study, so I would hate to get it wrong.
Okay.
So we'll get some more information before the DC trip.
Okay.
And make sure that we get an answer to you so you're equipped to know whether that's federal or state or how it falls into the conversation. So thank you for raising that, and with your permission, I'll just ask for more time to look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hare.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned a couple of items. The partisan law, I was wondering what the partisan law issue is and what it means to Fayetteville. That's one. You spoke about the Build Back Better, in, maybe out proposal. Is it anything, if not in there, something on the federal level that can assist with sidewalks and stormwater? And my last thing is, you mentioned about COVID still being a major issue, and it is everywhere, but it's also in Washington. Are is our delegation open for visits? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So first, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is the major legislation that Congress passed. It's $1.2 trillion in all kinds of infrastructure. And historically speaking, it was known as the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill, so it just covered things like roads and bridges and public transportation. They broadened it this year into the infrastructure law, and it was truly bipartisan. And in fact, our North Carolina senators had seats at the table on the Senate side and part of that negotiation. So we had a lot of influence in terms of, how that legislation came out. In any case, the law that passed, as I said, $1.2 trillion is 5 years of spending, and they call it the infrastructure law because it includes all of these other things besides just surface transportation. It has water and sewer infrastructure. It has broadband. It has energy efficiency, resiliency, climate action. So a whole host of things that historically really reminds me a lot of the 2008 stimulus bill. If y'all remember that, it has kind of a similarity to that. It's really meant to be part of the president's 3-part economic agenda for building back better. They call the Build Back Better plan on the Senate side the same name, which is unfortunate because sometimes it gets confusing with the Build Back Better overall economic agenda. But the reality is the 3rd part of that economic agenda, the Build Back Better plan, did stall in the Senate. And they're now looking at ways to possibly break it down so that there might be additional resources if they're able to pass components of that. We don't know what that would look like yet, so we're keeping an eye on it. In terms of, let me back up a moment. Sidewalks definitely are part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. They do have connectivity pieces and complete streets, so we'll definitely be taking a look at that. And in terms of being open for visits, the congressional offices are open for visits. Some under stipulations, we wear masks, and other things to keep everyone safe. But the Capitol Hill offices are starting to open up, but they're still not quite all open at the federal agency level. So we will make the meetings that we can make. We're going to, quite frankly, I will be advising everyone that while you're at the National League of Cities at the conference, a lot of these agencies will be at the conference giving as panelists, as speakers, and roaming around. And I'm going to ask all of you to help us help you. And when you see that there's a panelist in an agency, go introduce yourself, get a card. We'll be doing the same. We'll be at the conference. But get their business card, give them yours, and tell them we'll be giving them a call. And we will be following up with those virtually. Does that answer everything, Councilmember Hare, that you had on yours? Okay, terrific. Thank you, sir. Looking forward to seeing you. Glad you'll be with us.
All right, Councilmember Wright.
Yes, my question was answered to a large degree. I wanted to ask about infrastructure inside of that Build Back Better bill. And my biggest concern is Fayetteville. We get hit hard during storms, and so stormwater. Sit on this stormwater committee, and we've been going back and forth for a few years now as to how we're going to solve our problem. And we're looking at almost $200 million bill for funding to just tap our problem. So we're looking at a uphill battle. So we certainly need your help bringing money in for stormwater and for infrastructure here in Fayetteville, because those 100-year storms really hit us hard when they hit us. And
I would just say, thank you for mentioning that. In terms of the stormwater issue, water infrastructure, that was a big part of the ARPA money that you got too. That was one of the, the major eligible uses that they were encouraging communities to use to consider using those funds for. In the infrastructure bill, there are additional monies there. When you look at stormwater, typically EPA issue, there are different accounts, different programs through EPA. Also FEMA, there are things in terms of resiliency, so that will be an area. As a matter of fact, communities in North Carolina applying for resiliency grants, right, that we're working on now to deal with stormwater and flooding and all those things. But we did take the city in 2 years ago before the COVID issue, and we were able to meet with EPA, and they gave us a rundown of all the programs. A number of those programs have been funded up as a result of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and some other funding. So we would look at that. I will tell you, when you get into the big major projects, one of the ways to look at financing those projects too would be one of the big loan program, which is almost at 0% interest through the federal government to deal with water issues too. So the bottom line is there are a gamut of programs that we can look at and connect to the projects that you would want some federal investment for.
Thank you, and I know that Councilman Dawkins would be real happy with that. He sits at the chair of that Stormwater Committee, so he might have some questions too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys, I think that wraps it up. I hope, Mr. Manager, you were able to capture the areas that we want them looking for additional funding for resilience, housing, stormwater. Councilman Dawkins, you had something? Yeah, what, did you need action on this, Mr. Manager? This is just informational purposes.
It would be helpful if you could get some directions on the attachment that was handed out. And so what we're asking is that you recommend the federal advocacy agenda that was tackled with the additions that you've made.
Okay.
Verbally to Leslie, Ron, and Dave.
Okay. So are you basically saying to accept this with the additions that we talked about tonight?
Yes, ma'am, that will do it.
Mr. Dawkins, I'll second if you want to make that motion.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt the 2022 Federal Advocacy Agenda.
Second.
All right, this is a motion by
Mr. Dawkins, Councilmember Dawkins, with what we discussed tonight. Okay.
All right.
Second.
There's a motion, motion by Councilmember Dawkins to accept the advocacy agenda with the addition of those items that were discussed during the presentation. Is seconded by Councilmember Ingram. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Council, I'll look to you for your votes. Those in favor? All right, Councilman, okay. All right, Madam Clerk, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys. Get to work, bring us back some money.
Will do, sir. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right.
Is this information on
Our site, in our cam? Okay. All right. Item 8.02, Fayetteville Fire Department 2021 fourth quarter review. Is that Chief Hill? Here he comes. Good evening, Chief and Chiefs.
Hello. I like those jackets. Ain't they nice? Oh, my mic is on.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Council.
Good evening.
Hey, we want to take just a few minutes and reflect back on last year and talk about it from the fire department perspective. Overall, it was a good year for us. As we were living it, it kind of seemed like a continuation of 2020. But putting this report together reminded us of a couple things. One, what an awesome fire department we have. Number two, how fortunate we were in 2021. If you remember, we had a fire in the Clarion Hotel. By all rights, should have been the largest loss of life fire in the United States last year. But it wasn't, thanks to some quick actions of our first arriving crews and some divine intervention. We had a fire at Aquarama Pet Store where we had an early instant collapse. Had some firefighters trapped, disoriented, but we were able to get them out and avoid tragedy. We also had several firefighters that were hospitalized with COVID last year, one on a ventilator for several weeks, but he's back at work today. So, that's not blessed. I mean, I really don't know what is. But we understand, we're thankful for our blessings and thankful for our successes, but no, they're not ours alone. Firefighting's a team sport, so we want to give credit where credit is due. We want to thank the council for keeping us resourced appropriately so we could be successful last year. I couldn't ask for better guidance and direction I get from the manager's office, and one opportunity to say thank you for letting me be the fire chief. And a group that quite often that I overlook is my peers within other city departments. We couldn't exist, let alone be successful, if it weren't for the efforts of the other departments, department heads, whether it be HR, IT, finance, budget, other offices. We're quick to criticize when things don't go our way, but often enough we don't get to say thank you. So I'm happy to have a platform where I can do so publicly, so we appreciate that. But looking in for last year, I left our mission and vision statement up just to point out it hasn't changed. We're focused on all risk and all hazards. And to set the stage for the presentation, talk about why we do it. We do it because you say so. You establish policy, you set a goal, said you want a safe and secure community. My folks constantly remind me that I get paid the big bucks to develop strategy to help you achieve your goals, and we do so within our own planning documents. We've established 3 goals. One speaks to emergency service delivery, one to our people, our most important resource, and the third to preparation and recovery for the community. Tactically, we've organized the fire department into 3 branches, each one responsible for the respective goals, and each one overseen by a deputy chief. So what we're going to do tonight is I have 2 of my deputy chiefs with me. They're going to go over their respective areas in 5 minutes or less, just talk about the highlights of some of the things that they experienced in 2021. Chief Dove, our operations chief, will be up first.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, we'll start with total calls for service. For 2021, we responded to 26,414 emergency responses. As you can see, that's up right at 6,000 calls from 2020, but down 3,000 calls from 2019. We attribute that to COVID. When COVID struck, we worked with our colleagues at EMS to determine what calls we could save our people on, keep our staff from being exposed on. We expect 2022 numbers to be back even with or greater than 2019 numbers. One thing we're proud of is our turnout time. That is the time from the buzzer going off at the fire station till our folks are traveling out the door in the fire truck, and we've brought that down 7 seconds in the past few years. And our total response time is also becoming lower with that. We responded to 1,047 fire-related calls. That's structure fires, vehicle fires, grass fires, fire alarms, things like that. As you can see, 376 structure fires in 2021, that's down 5%. 145 vehicle fires, which is up 27%. We don't really have a reason for that. 247 natural vegetation fires, which is up 105%. We attribute that to the dry spell. 2,612 false alarms, which is up 10%. We had a lot more people at home a lot more time. 3 civilian fire fatalities, which is down 40% from 2020. 26 civilian fire injuries, down 7%. We attribute those two to our increased community risk reduction efforts. And we had 11 firefighter injuries, which was up 57%. Some of those were COVID-related exposures, and the rest were strains and sprains. We had no significant firefighter injuries. We had 376 structure fires. 223 of those were in single-family dwellings, your regular houses. 97 were in multifamily dwellings, which are apartments, duplexes, and 56 were in commercial occupancies. 53% of those were unintentional. 58% were confined to room of origin, and we attribute that to early detection, again, from the help of our community risk reduction efforts. 19 of those fires were incendiary fires that we can prove were intentionally set. 36% started in the kitchen, and that helps drive our efforts in reducing kitchen fires and educating our folks. And we had $8,527,643 in fire loss. With our EMS calls, we ran 17,729, which was up 37%. Obviously, the most difficult or the most frequent call was difficulty breathing, attributed to the COVID. 320 cardiac arrests, which was up 29%. 325 overdoses where Narcan was administered, which is up 112%. 2,473 vehicle accidents, up 22%, 372 technical rescues, which is up 3%, and the majority of those were vehicle accidents with people pinned and entrapped in their vehicles. And one North Carolina search and rescue deployment with our task force, and that was to Tropical Storm Ida in the mountains. We received our opioid overdose kits through grant funding from the county, and we were able to receive a SAFER grant for 70 defibrillators, which had increased technology to give a better chance of survival rates for our citizens. Our hazmat team responded to 394 incidents, which is up 16%. 13 of those were state missions where we either escalated a call in our city and county to a state mission or went outside of the county, which was down 1% from 2021. 134 natural gas leaks, which was up 44%. 37 hydrocarbon spills, which is your diesel and gasoline spills, which was down 3%, and $99,000 was billed in cost recovery. Our milestones for the operations branch were Fire Station 4 being built on Bragg Boulevard, which we hope to start moving dirt in June or July. We received Engine 2, which is in service at the Haymont Fire Station, and Truck 6, which is a ladder truck at Station 6 at Cliffdale and the All-American. And we were able to finish our cancer initiative and put a gear extractor in every station, which helps us launder our gear after fires to reduce the risk of carcinogens and cancer to our staff.
Good evening. Good evening. So goal 2 for the fire department deals with everything human resources related. My name is Ronnie Willett. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for Human Resources and Training. I'm going to go over a few statistics for you that you may find interesting. Currently, the department consists of 351.5 full-time equivalents of full-time positions. We were increased that by 1.5 positions in 2021 with the addition of a security coordinator, most of you have met, Mr. Rob, and a part-time fire inspector, which is also grant funded. Last year, we also replaced 33 firefighters through attrition, through hiring, and we added a deputy fire marshal and an office assistant too to our ranks. We implemented a new practice, which is the incorporation of lateral hires to our hiring processes, where we're gaining experienced firefighters from other municipalities, and we're offering them positions within our own. Last year, 10 people qualified for that opportunity. The graphs before you demonstrate our efforts towards organizational diversity. We do have DEI initiatives in place that we're trying to improve the representation of the organization to make sure we are equal to the community itself. And the orange line on the first graph shows you we are making incremental improvements to our overall organizational diversity. Currently, we're at 20.61%. You can see that's a tremendous growth over the last 3 years. We're making good headway in that regard. The blue line indicates our recruitment efforts towards underrepresented hires. Underrepresented hires to us is anybody who is non-white male, essentially, is how we categorize that. And we are making huge strides in that regard with recruitment and marketing for those demographics. Currently, the last hire boasted 36% underrepresented populations, or I'm sorry, the last recruitment class, rather. The next slide does show somewhat of a challenge, however. The orange line indicates our current annual rate of attrition, which we have been consistent over the last 3 years. So there's no real change there, but I want to bring your attention to the blue line, which is descending. Currently, our rate of our tenure, when you compare it to our attrition rate, is declining. What this tells us internally is that we are losing experience. We do not have an effective means to retain qualified, certified, and experienced personnel over a long period of time. So this is one of the challenges we have developed internally that we need to address. While our rate of attrition stays consistent, our overall expertise is diminishing. Some highlights from the training side of the house. As I mentioned, everything personnel related falls within our purview. In 2021, we offered over 130,000 hours of training. I'd like to remind you that we are all hazards, and our individuals have to train in a variety of topics, everything from aircraft related to hazardous materials to technical rescue and so on. We also fully certified 30 new firefighters, We hire inexperienced individuals and we turn them into firefighters in our own academy, hosted through Fayetteville Tech. 134 EMT certifications and recertifications occurred last year. We also have specialized training to support operations division. That includes rescue technician certifications, driver operator qualifications, and hazardous material certifications. Last year we had several successful candidates complete those courses as well. What this equivocates to, if you look at the chart above, is in 2021 we had on average 363 hours of training per member. That's a lot of training for each firefighter on a lot of different topics. If that doesn't demonstrate commitment to our craft, then I'd like somebody to show me what does, because that's a lot of extra time. In addition to that, career development is also within our purview. Last year we had a lot of individuals moving forward in their careers. This is something we're excited about. We had 18 firefighters advance through our career development plan. We promoted 4 lieutenants. We promoted 1 fire captain. We had 2 fire battalion chiefs promoted. We had 2 assistant fire chiefs promoted. We had 2 deputy fire chiefs promoted. We also hosted celebrated 8 service retirements as well. Recognitions included 7 gold life-saving awards were issued to our members for actions on scene. 7 silver life-saving awards were issued. 1 letter of commendation was administered, and 8 units earned citations from the fire chief. We had 47 CPR saves. That's 47 lives that were there that day that may not have been had we not been involved. We celebrated the birth of 19 individuals. We issued 19 birth coins, and we had 4 Firefighter of the Year awards issued, to include Hazmat Technician of the Year, Rescue Technician of the Year, Fire Officer of the Year, and Firefighter of the Year. We were able to celebrate that.
Right. Deputy Chief Alvarez manages our community preparedness branch, but unfortunately he couldn't be here, so I'm going to fumble through his slides real quick. We repurposed a vacant fire inspector position into a deputy fire marshal last year at a revenue neutral move. This is significant because for the first time in the history of the fire department, they give us a mid-level manager in the fire marshal's office. That'll help us with succession plan and help us grow future fire marshals. Nearly 1,500 new plans reviews, growing city. Fire inspections up just a little bit, but I want to talk briefly on the next metric, the 9,000 fire code violations discovered. I've mentioned to you in the past, and I want to harp on it here again. We don't do fire inspections to make money. We do fire inspections to save lives. And you have to remember, you know, the fire code doesn't apply to most residential situations. It applies to our businesses, on commercial property, our assembly occupancies. And we want to keep our patrons safe, but we also want to keep our businesses open and operating. We want them making money. We want their employees working. We want sales tax generators. So this is an area where your investment in our fire inspection division pays dividends back into the city. We do so much more than spray water and put on Band-Aids. I mean, and this is an example of that. Non-regulated inspections is daycares, foster homes, courtesy inspections, that kind of thing. And we do fire investigations, origin and cause investigations for every fire we go to, but we do technical investigations with assistance of the police department on calls that are obviously suspicious or not clear-cut that they are accidental. There's 125 of those with 18 suspects being charged by the police department last year. Next program in this branch is probably the most important program that we offer, was our community engagement. If you remember, in 2020, we were awarded a SAFER grant. We hired 18 firefighters. In 2021, those firefighters graduated from the academy, and we were able to creatively reassign a couple of those firefighters as fire and life safety educators, which tripled the capacity of what we had in that office at the time. And this is where it pays off. Smoke alarm installations went up 265% as a result of that. Over 1,100 in-person outreach events were able to be performed. That was with COVID posture in place. Over 28,000 citizens reached, and a really good win for us was, last year was the CERT Teen Academy. I know Ms. Kinston helped us with it a little bit. Very successful to the point that we're repeating it again this summer with 2 separate sessions, being it so popular, once in June and once in July. And I'm not mistaken, I think registration for the June session has just opened up. If not, it will any minute or any day now. But we're out in the community. There's no telling what you'll see firefighters doing. There's a few examples on the board here, whether it's participating in Fayetteville, beautiful, picking up litter, administering COVID vaccines, walking Sparky, putting up smoke alarms. We're out there doing all kinds of things all the time. Emergency management perspective, you know, you're used to seeing Mr. Scott Bullard up here talking to you. It's a position of coordination. We were fortunate last year. We had no large-scale disasters, no hurricanes, no tornadoes, no floods, that kind of thing. But it's good because we're still working as a liaison, working on projects back from Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Florence. Mr. Bullard was very active in our COVID mitigation measures, working with the county. I know he's been briefing council most meetings. He was able to update the EM ordinance you approved early last year, which basically just aligned our ordinance with general statute and added clarity to our ability to close streets that we didn't own. Probably the most significant thing to mention in the emergency management field was the way we've integrated him into special events planning. We've always been involved in events that involve the city, whether we did Dogwood Festival, Folk Festival, but we've now incorporated him in any event that triggers the need for a special events permit. There's some type of emergency action plan has to be prepared. And last but not least, and this is security. Whoever thought the fire chief would be talking to you about security? Chief Willett mentioned that we brought Mr. Robeson on last year, and he has hit the ground running. We've updated the weapons policy, the ordinance. I think you approved it a couple of meetings ago. He's working on access to city facilities plans, which is the proxy card reader, streamlining that. I think there's a TIP that'll be presented to you shortly. They'll talk about that. He's put together a training package for active assailant. It's for all city employees. It's been administered. There's some exercises, some drills is forthcoming with that. He's working on security assessments for existing city facilities as well as new construction projects. I went in his office the other day and he had the plans laid out for the Day Resource Center, the tennis center, senior centers. So he's trying to get these elements built in early into the projects. We've moved the security company contract under his purview, changed it into a new security company, and he's also been working with some screening devices that will be installed in a renovation project at the City Hall that we'll see shortly. But with that, that's 2021 for the fire department. And
yes, sir. I did have a question, Councilmember Ingram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for you all being here and doing what you do for the citizens and the city and keeping them safe as much as you can. I want to go back to, and I want to clarify before I ask my question to make sure I heard correctly what you said. You said the use of Narcan was up 105%?
That's correct.
So for the listening audience, can you give a description of what Narcan is?
Narcan is a trade name for a drug, naloxone, that we administer when somebody is going through an overdose with some type of opioid product. It's just a drug that allows the body to process oxygen, for lack of better description.
Thank you. And I want to clarify, it's up 105%, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And following that, you stated that you received a grant for overdose kits, right? Outside of that grant, do you already allocate funding to be able to purchase overdose kits?
When we first started administering naloxone, we did buy the
I'm sorry, can you talk up just a little bit?
When we first started administering naloxone, we did buy the first tranche of medicines, and then we were on a replacement plan with the hospital. But the county has used part of their ARPA funding to provide Narcan for first responders, all first responder agencies in the county, including the police department, for the next 5 years. So we're good with that.
And I do want to ask this final question. Do you know the percentage of usage where Narcan is not effective, where it just does not work?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ingram. Councilmember Kinston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I did want to mention is on the response time. First of all, I was glad to see that it came down. The second thing that I wanted to mention is just the education portion. In doing the videos and social media, that I think it would be nice to see the importance of why you need to move over, because that is really important. I saw the other day where a fire truck was coming by and people were kind of just like, okay, what do we do? So that education portion of just safely moving over and the importance of why you need to move over, because that would help with the response time as well.
Yes, ma'am, I think that's a great partnership or collaboration with the police chief. We can put something together.
Okay. And then the second one, if I can please just remove my hat for 1 minute, on behalf of the North Carolina Volunteer and Community Service, I would like to give a kudos to our Fayetteville Fire Department on behalf of the CERT. We have a very active CERT program, as you mentioned, in June and in July. We're going to have it again, and I do thank you for the partnership. That is not only a segue to be able to get individuals and teens interested in the fire department, but that's the first step in being able to give them that education on fire safety and also helping in our community. So thank you so much for that partnership. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Wright.
Thank you for the presentation. Feel good in the direction that you're going. But I have a question about diversity in your department. What are you doing in your policies with hiring, minorities, black, brown-skinned people? How is that coming? Because I know that you were working on that.
I think we're being very successful in our recruiting. If you remember the slide Chief Willett showed, that that's an ever-growing metric where we're actually bringing in minority candidates into the fire department. Even the process that we're running right now for 2022 is looking very promising for the amount of diversity that's represented in the eligibility pool up to this point. There's still some testing to go. But again, where we're struggling a little bit is retention. We're not keeping them as fast as we're gaining them, if that makes sense.
And so do you know what the problem is in retention? Is that they don't like the job once they get in the job, or what is the problem?
There is a lot of that. We're reaching out to populations that's never really considered the fire service as a career choice. And once they come in, once the coolness wears off, it seems like, okay, now we're ready to go back to what we were doing. And we are, be blatant honest with it, that's one of the metrics we're seeing and one of the trends why people are leaving.
You said I don't understand. You say once they get in, they see, but they don't like and ready to go back to what they were doing prior?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you think that just certain people are not cut out for that type of work?
Well, I think it's a very true statement, but that's not a statement based on any demographic. That's everybody.
So is it dealing with the environment that they're in? Is that conducive of them? I'm sorry. Oh, she got. So
Yeah.
is that conducive of them not liking the job itself, or is it working with others or dealing with that type of? Because it's a camaraderie. It's a brotherhood. It's that kind of thing. Do you see anything in that arena that kind of cause others not to want to be a part of it?
No, sir. When I do exit interviews, none of that has been mentioned at all. It's basically they look at the career of the fire service. They look at the risk the firefighters face with the cancer risk, and a lot of times, so why would I come do this? Why would I risk my life for this amount of money when there's so many other things that I can be doing?
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the salary is a lot of the problems in that type of field. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Jones.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Wright actually led into my question, and you actually answered it. I was asking in regards to that retention, how much of a factor do you think the salary is playing in that? But I think you answered that. But in addition to that, or aside from that, what do you, and I know this may be an answer that may need to be received later, but what do you think could possibly be done? I mean, right now, that what you're thinking about as far as to help us retain those with the experience, because what you all do is very, very important. And I know those years of experience and all the trainings and certifications that you noted that you all were doing. So I see the importance of that. But aside from the salary, what else do you see that we could do overall to help with that retention?
Well, I said, doing extra interviews, there is no one smoking gun. The trends why people are leaving is all over the board. But I think with any job, if we want to retain employees, we have to offer things that the other firms don't offer, whether that be with salary or benefits.
Gotcha. And then my secondary question of that, in regards to salary, has there been any type of comparative studies with other municipalities, things of that nature, to see how competitive our salaries are for this particular, for your department, so that we can kind of see what we're paying? Is it in line with other cities and municipalities our size?
Yes, sir. 2 years ago, there was a study done, and our salaries were brought up considerably, and we're currently in the middle of a similar study at this moment right now.
Thank you so much. And excuse if you all heard a lot of helicopters. Fort Bragg is very busy tonight, so excuse me for that.
All right, no problem. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, then Davis.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. As it relates to recruitment, I know just like the Fayetteville, our police department, they have the police academy. I know we have the CERT program for the youth. Do we have something for adults that's interested in possibly, or just resources-wise, just providing that information to them so they can have a little bit more background, just as the police academy does?
We do a session with overall city academy. There's a section specifically on the fire department. And each year when we're doing our recruitment efforts, we have several work sessions to give the community opportunity, or prospective candidates the opportunity to come in and learn more about the fire department.
Okay, but it's not nothing like the police academy where they're getting a little bit more in-depth?
No, ma'am.
Kind of hands-on training with that. Okay, and for those who are listening, what are the qualifications, or if anyone is interested in applying for those positions, how do they go about applying? And what are the qualifications?
Chief Willie, you want to answer that? This is your lane.
Okay, I appreciate that question. The qualifications to become a Fayetteville firefighter are 18 years of age or older, a driver's license from North Carolina, and limited misdemeanor and no felony convictions. That's it.
And how long is the training?
The training's usually 17 weeks total, and then they go to EMT school following the fire academy.
Okay, are we also visiting high schools
We are.
to try to recruit in colleges?
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying, are we going to high schools and as well as colleges to try to communicate with, or try to get some of the?
Yes, ma'am, we
people to
are.
come
We
in?
have a recruitment officer. We have a fire captain functioning as a recruitment officer right now, and
Okay.
his primary focus is Fayetteville-centric. He is in the high schools. He does visit the colleges, and he does put a hands-on approach to targeted recruitment efforts.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
All right, Councilman Davis.
2 questions, Mr. Mayor, gentlemen. During the out-processing interviews, have any firemen, fire professionals, have they identified any other perks, benefits, things that they believe would be helpful outside of simply, we want, we need more pay? Have they identified any other things that?
No, sir, nothing specific.
Okay, and also, your workforce, is it volunteer, full-time, and part-time combination? Do you have some part-time firefighters, or you only have full-time?
No, we're
volunteer?
strictly full-time.
Have you guys ever thought of part-time?
We have. I mean, we've talked about it in the past, part-time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Chief, thank you guys for a great presentation. I have two points I want to make. One, I'll save the last one because it may bleed into Chief Hawkins' presentation. Wrong phrase. May spill into Chief Hawkins' presentation. One is, what is the volume of calls that we do? 26,000. That's a lot. It sounds like a lot. But how does it compare to the number of full-time staff we have? So the question is, we saw in some other trends in some other departments that we do, like inspections, for instance, 14,000 violations, which is 2 and 3 times higher than places like Raleigh and Charlotte that have more people. Do we have a high volume compared to the number of people?
That's actually, it's great timing. We did a performance stat presentation actually last month, and our total staffing number is perfectly in line where we need to be with the total call volume.
So how's our total calls compared to peer cities?
It's basically the same.
So
per capita, it's the same.
So Raleigh, more population, you know what their calls are? Like, ours is 26,000. What is it relative to?
I don't remember exactly their call volume, but I can tell you the metrics we looked at and the comparables that we used, Raleigh was far worse off with personnel than we were.
No, not talking about the personnel at this time. I'm talking about the number of calls that you respond to.
Honestly, I don't remember the number of calls.
So what I was getting at is we have some unusual metrics. We have the second, third busiest emergency room on the East Coast, but our population is not the second or third biggest. So I'm trying to get a comparison. Is if 26,000 seems like a big number, but is it relative to other places our size?
I'll see if I can help you out with some of that. Our ER is busy because everybody from the county comes in. So, well, there's 21 county fire departments. They run 3,000-4,000 calls apiece as well, as are 26,000. So you've got Hope Mills, Stony Point area, South Cumberland County that respond to a bunch of those calls as well, where Raleigh is more widespread, so they have a lot more fire stations, so the numbers aren't really comparable with what we do.
Well, I wasn't necessarily pointing back to the ER. I'm just talking about the number of calls. Somebody calls 911 and you respond 26,000 times in a year. Is that normal compared to somebody else with 210, 20,000 people?
Yes, sir. We are comparably with our sister cities of the same size. We are a little bit busier, but maybe 5 to 8%.
Okay. All right. That was the question.
And I want to add one thing on the retention. The fire service, and as well as the police department, is in an interesting time right now. It's actually a dire time. This job, people see some horrible things. They go through some horrible times with people, and they work nights, weekends, holidays. So it takes a special person, and there's so many other job opportunities right now. Why would they come do this, be exposed to the things they're exposed to for what they're getting? So it's not just a Fayetteville problem, it's a nationwide problem that we're all trying to combat.
Well, hopefully the positives of why they be a firefighter and who they help and that kind of thing outweigh that. But that was where I was going with the number of calls, or if it was burnout related. You know what I mean? Like if that's something that you can see over and over again without it having a toll on you. Because I think your time was like an average of 8 to 10 years or something like that. So if that's an industry standard with turnover, I understand it. But we've got to replace it with equal experience, because by the time you bring them up to that experience level, you know, we're losing. So I got that. Last question is the overdose, the Narcan responses, right? So up 105%, I think you said 300 plus. You know, my day job is in the funeral business. I see a lot of overdoses that didn't make it, I guess, respond to the Narcan. So a two-part question. One is, does Narcan help when a fentanyl exposure has happened, or is it just for opium overdose?
It's fentanyl as well, but I believe fentanyl is an opioid, isn't it?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
The one problem we have with tracking these things is once we transfer care to EMS, we cannot get patient outcomes.
Gotcha.
So the only thing we can track is if they're breathing when we transfer them to EMS. We are very successful with Narcan administration. Very rare, if any, times do people that are overdosing in crisis not respond. The majority of our fatalities from opioids are people aren't witnessing it, and they're coming in later after they've passed.
So one of the things, and I think this is in the chief's upcoming presentation, if I saw the slide right, it was about 80-something deaths attributed to overdose, right? And so that you know about. So you responded to 329 or 30, so 25-30% ended fatally that you know of. And I know those are just guesstimate figures, but my point is that there are some communities, some cities, I'm getting information so I can actually let council take a look at it, that just like you're doing the Narcan kits for responding, they're fentanyl test kits. I mean, that you know, communities where people are going to use, which we know that's happening, you're not encouraging it, but it could really probably save some lives if there were some kits that help people know that, because the mere exposure to that is dangerous. Is that right?
Yes, sir. We actually nationwide, several emergency responders, police and fire, have, I mean, one little speck of fentanyl and products like that will put us into respiratory failure. So it's very critical. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there were some cities who were actually having those kits available to distribute. So I'll bring that at a later time. But thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few questions, and you answered a lot of questions with your answer. So I guess my first question is, on the waiting list at your next class coming up, do you have a full class ready to come? Because I know at one time you had a list that was unbelievable. The people were waiting years.
Yes, ma'am. So the way we've framed our hiring is we accept applications beginning in January. Okay, January through April is what we consider our building phase, where the candidates go through a series of evaluations to end up on a hiring list. That hiring list is sequential. So what we will do is we select candidates based off their qualifications to be on this list from the top down.
So how many people are on that list right now that are looking to be firemen?
Mayor Pro Tem, what I can
women?
tell you is we've just concluded one last week, and we have
Okay.
84 people moving forward in our hiring process at this time.
Okay.
So typically, we expect anywhere from 250 to 400 applications,
Okay.
and we typically process right around 100 to maybe 140 candidates.
And I apologize, I should have said applications, so I apologize. So you get anywhere from 200 to 400 applications?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then, my next question is, or I guess my aha moment that you were talking about up there, is I think we're in a time of the past 2 years that people are deciding that their mental health is more important than money. And, we are getting money coming down from the federal, the state, and everything. And for once, I think people are saying, I don't care how much I'm making, my mental health is more important than what I'm getting. So, I just felt like I needed to say that, and, because I know that y'all are doing the best that you can to get people to come and be firemen and women, and thank God for you, and we appreciate you. But I do know that's probably a big struggle, because mental health now is bigger than it has ever been, and people, I think, are taking control of their lives, their mental health, a lot more than they did 5 years ago. So I'm sure it's a changing environment. That's all I had to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right. Well, great job.
Mr. Mayor? Motion.
Okay. Great job to you and your team, Chief Hill. Keep up the good work. No, it's a thankless job sometime, but we really appreciate it. So, Council, I look to you for a motion. Councilmember Ingram.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to receive the fire department fiscal year report, annual 2022 report. Thank you.
There's a motion by Councilmember Ingram, seconded by Councilmember Banks.
2021, my apologies.
Is a motion by Councilmember Ingram, seconded by Councilmember Banks. McLaughlin, any discussion on the motion? Council, I look to you for your votes to accept the report. All right, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Motion carries. Chief Hawkins.
Good evening. First of all, allow me to double down on Chief Hill's eloquent start in thanking not just council for all that you've done to support us, because it's kind of exciting for me to be able to share what we've done working, but also the senior leadership team, the city manager's office, and all the other leaders, because there is no way we're able to operate as a high-efficiency police department without operating with a high-efficiency city doing so much. And we work as a serious team. We learn from each other. I think we push each other all the time. So thank you for that opportunity to be a city employee and working with all the leaders in the city management office. And thank you for the guidance and the good questions that always comes about from city council to allow us to share what we're doing and explain how we operate. So I'm going to start off with our review. I have members of my staff, and then I'm going to also, when I get to the end, I know I have a secondary camera presentation that Major Brayton is going to present. I want to do that before we take questions because I believe that a lot of your follow-up questions are going to come up from the second one, so I want to do it at the same time. But I'm going to try to answer as many questions that I heard you say, ask Mayor beforehand during this presentation, any ones that I've heard that might correlate to, that was associated with the fire department as well. So the format, as you recall, we're going to go over just our crime numbers. I'm going to share a little bit about our trends and how we get to where we are. That goes along with analysis and strategies. And then we're going to, of course, share about our community engagement. So our fourth quarter means that for the entire year, we're looking at January through December of 2021 and comparing it to the previous year. And as you can see, our total overall crimes against persons and crimes against property, total overall crime, which includes all the crime subcategories, we were down compared to 2020. 2021 was down compared to 2020, which is a hard feat, especially because our 2020 numbers were very good. So we're going against our own good numbers and doing it, as you know, with less people. I also wanted to show a little bit about our citywide arrest, felony and misdemeanor breakdown. This is the first time I'm showing you this, just to see, even though we've had less incidents, we have a little bit less compared to 2020, but if you recall, our focus is on repeat offenders because we understand and know that there's a small percentage of people in our community doing multiple crime incidents. This is the 6-year trend that we wanted to share. Last year I shared the 5-year trend, and then as we're producing our annual report, I'm going to show you the 10-year trend. So for the 6-year trend, we are at the lowest overall crime than we have in the last 6 years, year after year, total. Let's break down the crimes against persons because this is what we've been talking about for many years. It was just homicide and aggravated assault. We already know, it's not a secret, we have 48. That's 16 more than the previous year. I'll break down those numbers later in the next few slides. Our rape stayed the same. Our ag assaults was up a few more than the previous years. Our overall crimes against persons were down, which brings us up total down 2% from 2020. And this is our separate crimes against persons 6-year trend as well. Now we're going to talk about property crime and crimes against property, which includes robbery, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and all other thefts. A lot of different categories. Right now, the only crime was motor vehicle theft, had a slight increase from the previous year. And this is our 6-year trend, which says a lot. And I want to share a little bit on as we look back in time and to see what occurred. And from 2017 to 2018, we had we started our a community affairs unit. We also, where we educate the public a lot on things like the 9 p.m. routine. Our crime prevention unit was already going to community watch groups, but we also included officers partnering with them going to the community watch group meetings. We just decentralized our crimes against properties to our districts, where it was centralized in headquarters in that year. So besides that, that plays a lot in education in the community, where we can think that where that big drop is the community being educated and informed a lot more. That's how we can look back and think of what do we do, what do we change from 2017 that we started doing in 2018. So this is the chart I want to talk about all deaths investigation. This includes not just the homicide, but overdose, suicide, and natural deaths. All of these deaths our homicide unit responds to. So all the deaths, we had an increase of 21% of all deaths in which the homicide unit had to go investigate to determine whether or not it was a homicide or if it was an overdose, as you noted, the mayor, regarding 84 compared to the previous year, a 12% increase. Notice suicide is up as well. And natural deaths, you know, we're not sure if it's whether it's suspicious, so a homicide unit has to go out and determine whether or not it is or not. We broke down an analysis just so that we can evaluate, is there any trends or motives that we need to be paying attention to? So we broke down the suspects' demographics as we look at things. We still have, from last year, we still have 14 unsolved, so we can't give a demographic suspect for those. We have the ones that we arrested, the known arrest and their status, and then we have victimology as well, who are the victims of the homicides. Possible motives, based off of the facts and details surrounding the investigation, we put them in these certain categories, and these are the breakdown. The ag assault numbers, we further broke those down because domestic violence is a subsection of aggravated assault, to see where our increases come in that, and we assess that for our domestic violence unit, as well as our ag assaults, to see if we have any trends that we need to be monitoring, and keeping in mind that ag assault, if we have like one shooting into a house and there's 4 victims, those 4 victims get counted as an incident in this situation. I want to highlight again in the final quarter, if you recall, each quarter I talk about the separate, I just saw, sorry, Aaron. We talk about how our task force officers work to be a force multiplier, not just for our city, but for our region. And in the fourth quarter, we had 7 individuals federally sentenced, and we had 14 federally indicted in their pending adjudication. We seized $34,000 worth of associated with criminal activity, and just the task force officers alone seized 11 firearms during their investigations. Now we break down a narcotics unit just so that we can monitor the trends of drugs that we're pulling off the street. We see cocaine has gone up. Heroin is, hasn't had a big increase. Marijuana's been stagnant. Fentanyl, we put a lot of fentanyl off the street last year compared to the prior year. We focused the entire year, different units focused on guns, taking them off the street. The narcotics unit took more from the previous year. I also put citywide, all the entire department, how many weapons, because we really, mid-year, when we saw a lot of violence happening, focus on weapons being taken off. So we took 785 weapons off the street compared to 660 the previous year. And this is our clearance rate. This is the rate at which investigations are completed compared to national average. You can see the national average is the gray column. 2021 is the orange column, and 2020 is the blue column. So we monitor our trend of how we solve the cases. And mostly all the cases except for aggravated assault, we're above national average. We always monitor our fatalities. We had one more fatality than the previous year. We look at the circumstances surrounding it, where the previous year was a lot of pedestrian. This year we had an increased speed was associated with our fatalities, as well as motorcyclists. Fatalities included that. We looked at the number of traffic stops, whether it's a warning or citations that happened from the previous year. We always participate in the governor's highway safety program, where we join together and do what you know is roadblocks or safety checks. That's always a force multiplier when we're targeting DUIs in our area. Calls for service. Here's a number that it's kind of big. It's compared to how much we had in 2020. I believe that's at 26,000. I'm thinking, I don't have my notes with me. Increase in calls for service compared to the last year. That's a lot of additional calls. So our response time is higher than normal, higher actually than our target goal. We also look at not just having the officers that respond in the district, but how we respond. These are priority 1 and priority 2 calls. These are the calls that are going to have one or more than one officer respond to the scene for safety of the officer and for safety of the resident. It's a high volatile call that we're going to need support. So it is likely that coming off of that call, going to another one, it will have a delay in response time. But to your question, Mayor, to the fire chief, I will be looking up the cost for service comparison to other cities, like our area, like our peer cities, and see the difference, and look at the difference from staffing. But I'm gonna see what the increase is for other cities. Going back to the Narcan response, if you our Narcan investigations do not even show the individuals that died at the hospitals. So these are the ones that we are investigating. And these are the ones, and the other question regarding Narcan, Narcan is available to citizens because there are many times we show up and they have Narcan with them, knowing that they're going to utilize some type of drug and have it available with someone with them so that they can administer them if they go into an overdose situation. We've seen those type of situations over and over. So now we go into the Office of Professional Standards, and when we look at the use of force that we review, and these are all any type of force that has any injury, that utilizes any of our equipment. We do a review of all use of force that happened in 2021 compared to 2020. Internal Affairs investigation. Internal Affairs is the investigations that are initiated by supervisors inside the police department, and citizen complaints are the complaints that come from outside the organization to our Internal Affairs unit from outside, from citizens who are filing complaint. Staffing as of December 31st, we had, these were our numbers from sworn and non-sworn. In 2021, at the end of the year, we received our 10th Gold Standard Award. We go up for accreditation for Gold Standard every 3 years, and this is the 10th year that we've received the Gold Standard Award again. And these are our new accreditation manager and specialists. Our community engagement for the fourth quarter, we started off October the 9th with a youth town hall in association with National Faith and Blue Weekend. We had a youth summit. October the 14th, we had our annual shred event where we, free of charge, offer opportunity for the community to come shred documents so that their identity is not stolen. We had our last quarterly faith forum, October 21st, I'm sorry. October 22nd, we had off of Sapona Road our Operation Ceasefire Movie Night. October 28th, we had our Community Solutions Summit on Violence, where we invited other community partners across the nation to come talk about initiatives that deal with violence. And this is also a part of where we're bringing on a community violence reduction advocate and trying to get up and running for our community to do a landscape analysis, so we're excited about that. We premiered December the 2nd. Our new EKG2 movie updating called The Crux. It was premiered at the AMC Theater, and we have a curriculum for that for the community and for kids in our community about gun violence and decision making. And we graduated December the 8th. We have 2 Citizens Police Academy. That was our second Citizens Police Academy graduation on that date. We had a law enforcement town hall meeting where we introduced the community to our partners from Fayetteville State, ATF, ALE, U.S. Marshal, DEA, FBI, and they were able to share with the community through Zoom and at Fayetteville State University their mission and how they support our region, and how we have partners that work for the police department and are force multipliers when the time comes to need resources in our area. And of course, last but not least, we had the New Year's Eve Spectacular, where we had over 100 officers working security for the event planning, as well as other events happening that night. So Major Braden's going to come up as we talk about our camera system and what we have. And I'll give him a second. Stand right here. You know where
it is. Yeah, Chief, we do have a couple questions before you all while you're getting the presentation ready for the next phase.
Okay, I'll answer those.
All right, Councilman Dawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chief Hawkins. I'm trying to understand the number of homicides. Is that the number of events, or is that the number of dead? Because I was under the impression we did have homicides where we had more than one to die, whereas 2 perpetrators shot and killed each other. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, do we have 48 dead, or are there more?
Those are bodies, sir.
Those are bodies, okay, thank you. And then my last question, I noticed heroin is down, cocaine is up 2.5 times, fentanyl is up 400%. Would you give your best estimate as to why that is? Is it because of price? Is heroin, is the drug of choice fentanyl and it's affordable? I need to try to understand what has happened, and then what's your guidance as to how we go about fighting this? What are other police chiefs doing that you're borrowing their ideas from, hopefully?
So they're borrowing our ideas.
Or they're borrowing ours.
So this is the narcotics unit by themselves with their proactivity, and when they go out and make arrests, this is their seizure. Now, as it gauges how we can predict what's happening, that's very difficult just based off the seizures, but we know that fentanyl overdoses, it's an opioid, that's up, which is it's the really dangerous drug, because you only need a small portion of that. They're lacing that with a lot of different things, so the focus on trying to get fentanyl is really high across the nation because how volatile that drug is. People are trying to get people to come and use that drug, and once you get hooked to that, it's really dangerous. So our focus on trying to get that off the street is a priority. We haven't seen that much movement on heroin based off of the numbers and based off of the sales, the feedback that we get from our detectives and our partnerships with DEA. We still see cocaine still in marijuana, even though it's legal in some states. It is still a viable drug that's being used across the nation. But the numbers that we have is very difficult to say what should we target on. But we know that across the nation, targeted on fentanyl is a priority, not just the powder, but they come in pills and they come in all formats. That leads to, because it's so volatile, because the exposure, as Fire Chief explained, to that drug is the reason why we are purchasing equipment and grants that allow us to detect what that drug is without even touching it, because it's that dangerous. Any small amount exposure to officers, canines, or anyone else is volatile. That's why we keep Narcan on us, not just for the community, but for ourselves.
Gotcha.
We've had times when we've had to administer it to ourselves.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Dawkins. Chief, I did have a couple of questions. I saw 11 guns seized by, I guess, the special unit, but then I saw a total of 787 weapons. So does that count pocket knives and all that kind of stuff?
No, when I pulled those numbers, that's firearms only.
Firearms only, sir.
Okay, so only the special task force you have for violent crime only got 11, but out of the 785?
That is the task force officers, and we have about, give me the number, is it 12? 12 task force officers. That's DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshal. That is just in that fourth quarter of the activity that they focused on.
So the 785, was that fourth quarter, or that was all year?
That's all year.
Okay.
That's the entire department, yes.
All right. And the other thing I had was kind of a fentanyl, well, 2 parts to the fentanyl situation, because that's a serious matter. One is, there's some communities are filing murder charges for the people who are distributing that when it results in a death. Have we done any of that?
We have started looking at and having discussion with the district attorney about being able to collect evidence and starting that process of that. Collecting evidence could mean having cell phone data or getting search warrants for cell phone and looking at same or similar. So we are working to try to collect that data, but it's very difficult when you have to obtain it from family members after the death.
because one distributor can kill 2 or 3, 4 people in an area, yeah.
Once they're creating the drug to sell, it's highly likely you might see 2 or 3 incidents happening where whatever they're measuring is not working out.
Right. And the last question is in regards to that. Back in the 80s and 90s, when the crack epidemic was out there, you know, you saw this is your brain on drug marketing. What kind of marketing are we doing to let people know about fentanyl? Are we doing any internal social media marketing or anything for the anti-use part of this?
We have not, but we can definitely look at it. We have there's already some that exists from DEA, so we'll look at that to try to push out some more PSAs on what drugs can do and what the dangers of fentanyl.
Because unfortunately, you know, like I said in my other line of work, I see kids. 17. There was one kid was about to graduate, or first day of or week of his senior year, took a pill that had it, and unfortunately.
And that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
They're making it in a pill format, and they're making it dangerous. No one knows who's making it.
Right.
But they're trying to make it very attractive in different formats and lacing it with other things.
Yeah, so I think the messaging and the marketing are very important to deter that. All right, that's it. And Councilman Wright? I'm sorry, Councilmember Kinston and Wright.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And Mayor did kind of touch on one of the questions that I had about the weapons for the 785.
Yes.
I know earlier we had talked about the councilmember requests with being able to destroy weapons and different things. It is back on our federal agenda again. So do you know, just if we had 785 that was collected total in the year, how far we are into this year? Because that number, I'm sure it's not going down because they're sitting there.
No, and I think we found a workaround to the destruction of it, and we're still working on that. So we have some positive movement of a way to do it. So give me a chance to follow up on that one.
Okay, and then the other question that I had is with the motor vehicle theft. You're starting to see more videos of, you know, the doors being pulled and things at night on people's camera. Is there a way that those cameras are being, you know, if they report it, and not just post it, but they're reporting it, that those are being linked together to try to figure out who these individuals are that are hitting neighborhoods? Okay.
Let me share that one, and we're going to answer all the cameras after this one. That might lead up to it. But your point on motor vehicle thefts, it is, so remember, this is last quarter, but we keep up every week, have at least 2 meetings about what's going on right now, and we have seen an increase in motor vehicle thefts, and we've seen another increase on breaking into vehicles, and 90% of the cases is because people are leaving their vehicles unlocked. People are leaving cars in their vehicles, running. We've shared PSAs. We go out and talk about it. They're leaving property inside their vehicles to get stolen. So we are pushing that out over and over again. We can't emphasize the importance of education and letting people know, please lock your items up, don't leave things in the car, and don't leave your car running. Because it is, we've had an increase this year, and we see a large increase this first 2 months already.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Wright?
Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. I know you mentioned also the summit that we had. And during that summit, and I was excited about the information we heard and what they're doing in other cities, and the presenters were awesome. My question is de-escalation. So are we doing de-escalation training now, and what does that consist of? And also the next question will be, how do we handle mental illness when we come into contact with someone that we may feel like, the police officer may feel like, okay, there's something else going on out here. Can you talk about de-escalation and mental illness?
Did you ask that? What was the third question you asked about the?
Well, I just mentioned the summit, and that's coming down the pike. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Let me talk about de-escalation. Yes. Not only do we have all of our dispatchers trained in crisis intervention training, which is a de-escalation, evaluating what the officer is going to respond to, whether it's someone with mental health illness or going into a crisis. So from the gate, when they have a 911 call, we know who to send out and who's trained. So we also note on our patrol who is crisis intervention trained so we can deploy them.
Okay.
But we also have de-escalation training on different formats, whether it been our right training, whether it been, it's called ICAP training, which is part of de-escalation, but we're always looking for new de-escalation training. And we have plans to have crisis intervention training or ICAP training become and train the trainers so we can have more people trained within the police department that are officers. Our mental, as you know, our mental health liaison, we're bringing them on the second week in March. That person is also going to be tasked with ensuring more officers or crisis intervention CIT training, which is a 40-hour course, on top of evaluating, their first mission is going to evaluating all of the calls that we have historically. We have repeated calls where there's a mental health issue, so that that person or that family can get resources that an officer who's responding to the 911 call that we get all the time doesn't have to continue to do that. So that's going to be one of the first focuses they have. But that person comes on in mid-March, and we're excited about that.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 questions, or short questions, and I think you've gone over them, but I just want them to be repeated. But the first one I don't know. With the fentanyl has rise tremendously,
Yes.
and we saw that with the fire department too. Have the schools, the Cumberland County school system, are y'all in the schools any, or I know at one point you kind of could get into the city schools, and is that something that?
So we're in the schools as it relates to educating kids on guns, but not since COVID.
Okay.
So we're looking at other ways to get to the students to do that training and in the community to do that training. But because of COVID, we're limited to access to the schools. Outside of that, no, we're not in the schools.
So just my opinion, and I would like, if there is anything that we can do as a body to help you with that, because I think it really starts off with the kids of being able to think that, you know, my body is my temple and I don't want to put anything bad in it, and just educate them in there of what people could give. I did not realize that people are giving pills. So education is key. The other thing that I wanted to bring up again is, and it's a short answer, I know when things happen in Fayetteville, I know that y'all go out, you arrest people, and due to COVID, I know that people are not staying in jail very long. So what again is the percentage of repeat offenders that we are having? As you know, that like the burglaries and things like that in the cars.
Not prepared for that answer because that's I would have to look at that. But what we realize when we focus on repeat offenders, we're able to get that person who has committed multiple violence within our community, and then we notice our community getting a break.
So you answered basically what I wanted you to answer. So yes, that we know that where they are. And I'm going to go back to locking the car doors.
Yes.
I know that they are out there and they are just going through neighborhoods, and all they're doing is walking down the street, and whoever's car is opened,
Yes.
they are going to steal. And I will say, it's not a fun fact, but it's a true fact, that in one neighborhood a few years back, somebody got their car stolen twice because they kept the key in the ignition,
Yeah.
and they stole it, they got it back, and they came back 2 weeks later and got it again. So, you know, for the listening audience out there, you know, you need to lock your doors.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Chief, I know you have a second half of the presentation, and we still have a ways to go on the agenda, so I'll turn it back over to you guys.
All right, members of the council. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you guys about the camera network system that we have in place. My name's Kim Braden. I'm the Chief of Staff, and currently I supervise our Crime Information Center. For those of you who've been to the police department, it's the room with the big TV screens. We're able to see all the things going on all across the city. Tonight with me, I have the supervisor, Kim Richards. She supervises the day-to-day operations to include the analyst and the camera network specialist, Dean Regat, who handles all the functions of the citywide network. The purpose of tonight's presentation is A, to give you an overview of our current system and its capabilities, to give an overview of current projects and new expected capabilities, and finally to give an overview of potential growth and expansion that we were hoping to obtain in our existing network. All right, we're going to cover our existing infrastructure. Currently, we have PTZ surveillance cameras located throughout the city. PTZ stands for Pan, Tilt, Zoom, and we currently have about 118 that are operational throughout the city. Began in 2013 with the concept of integrating a citywide network system that would include cameras that would allow us to go back and review footage, monitor things that were going on, and they were great for planned events such as marches, protests, or even festivals such as the Dogwood Festival, things that we knew were going on. In addition, it provided us with a resource that we could go back and research camera footage to investigate other crimes that occurred throughout the city. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew hit Fayetteville and the East Coast, and it really crippled our existing systems. In 2017 to 2019, system recovery of the wildfire system and was converted over to the new Brady system. There have been many success stories, but again, this is a surveillance type camera system where you got to review the actual footage that is on there. In addition to our PTZ and surveillance cameras, there's a total of 289 contract security cameras throughout the city. These are under contract with the city of Fayetteville, and they're in our existing city buildings, municipal buildings, and rec centers. Here you'll see a map of the current locations of all of our PTZ cameras. And this is the current map of all of our contract cameras that we contract out through our municipal buildings and rec centers. This is the current phase of our LPR system. LPR stands for License Plate Readers. Basically, they give us the ability to read tags and identify cars that are traveling throughout the city. Additional AI makes the cameras capable of reading make, model, or color of vehicles. This creates a real-time crime center at our crime information center. So based on the other cameras that I just talked about, we have to record the footage, and we'd have to go back if we had a call for a service or a crime. We'd research cameras within that area to see if there was anything caught on that tape. The new LPR systems, based on what we input into the system, are able to give us alerts of activity of a vehicle traveling in and around of a certain area. It could be a tag number, it could be a vehicle make, it could be a vehicle model, or even a vehicle color. Based on the AI, we have the ability to manipulate the system to get alerts back to us about all that information. Artificial intelligence is AI. Those alerts, they go to our dispatch center, they go to our CIC, they go back to the original detectives who enter the information in. And I think Dean informed me earlier that once that LPR makes that read, within 3 to 7 seconds, whoever requested that information or dispatch is getting an alert that that vehicle was contacted within our city. This information is relayed to officers, and the immediate notification takes about 3 to 7 seconds. So based on that, the existing LPRs that we have up and the contract security cameras and phase 1 of our LPR project is outlined in this map here. It's a little bit hard to see, but the light green dots are going to be the existing LPRs. So progress. We've paid for a total of 52 license plate reader cameras. Phase 1 is 10 cameras to be installed. That phase is complete. They went live November 8th, I believe was the actual first one that actually went online. Phase 2 is a total of 22 cameras. That's the in-progress phase that we're in now. Right now, right before the meeting, we were updated. I think we're live with 31 of the 32 cameras that are actually between phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 is an additional cameras expected to be completed by the end of March 2022. And phase 4 is 10 additional cameras on top of that, expected to be completed by May 2022. Again, all these cameras are full license plate readers and AI capabilities. So we wanted to talk about some of the success stories that we've had so far. Now remember, we're only partially into phase 2 of our implementation. We've been live since November 8th, 2021. Currently 31 cameras operational throughout the city. And based on their operation and the detectives and officers that utilize them, they've assisted in 3 homicide arrests, 2 shooting incidents, 3 robbery arrests, 3 felony arrest warrants services. On here you see it says 16 recovered stolen motor vehicles. Again, in the last week, we've added that, increased that number to 21. So this PowerPoint was actually prepared about a week and a half ago, but that 16 is now 21, and it's assisted in 1 bank robbery investigation that has led to multiple, one suspect who's suspected of multiple bank robberies throughout our region. So it's not just Fayetteville, it's a regional asset to our surrounding jurisdictions. And a total of 33 felony arrests with 2 firearms seized. So preparing for the future. Proposed future sites for camera operation. We've already identified locations of value that will reinforce the perimeter, areas that are a low camera saturation currently under our system. The sites have been surveyed and we planned out, and what we looked at was what potentially would it take to reinforce and have the ideal system, making sure that our perimeter is secure and that the avenues of greatest travel within our city are covered. That would be a total of 166 cameras to enhance our existing coverage. Many sites require more than 1 or 2 cameras to adequately cover the entire intersection. So if you travel down the roadways and you see like you're on a toll road, you see they have a whole line of cameras to make sure they're getting every possible angle. We've found with the current ones, the Recore cameras that we utilize, that they'll cover about 3 lanes of travel, but it's going to take 2 to cover some roadways such as Skybo Road where we have 4 to 6 lanes of travel along those intersections. And right here you'll see this is a citywide camera network that includes all of our current cameras, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of our LPRs, to include our future sites and the contract cameras that we have throughout the city municipal buildings. Fusus One. Fusus One is a software subscription. We initially initiated the project on February 24th, which was last week, where we had our startup meeting with the vendors. It allows privately owned commercial cameras to share live video feeds with the police department. This will act as a force multiplier, allowing the PD to partner with private sector cameras and security with the permission and cooperation of the private parties. Examples of people we would potentially partner with: a hospital has a great camera system. Cross Street Mall has a very high-tech and a great number of cameras out there. Churches, stores, anywhere that people are willing to share with us, it acts as a force multiplier for the existing cameras that we already have out there. In addition, it allows the PD to maintain virtual databases and a map of all security cameras to identify potential evidence. So even though someone doesn't want to actually partner with us and purchase one of the cores, they can let us know that, hey, if something does happen, come by, speak with us, and we'll determine, and they'll be able to provide us with that video in a cloud-type platform. I do have a quick video. Gavin, if you would, I got to prep the audio. And this video will actually show you, give you a good insight into what Fusus One offers.
Welcome to Fusus. The industry's first cloud-based, rapidly deployable, real-time crime center. Fusus integrates all major public safety technologies
actually get video and live feeds of crime or criminal activity in real time, where we can make decisions about how to investigate or how to respond to a particular area. So any questions about the FUSIS section of it?
Yes, I think first up we have Councilmember Hager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It's not so much on the fuses, but when we look at our cameras, how effective do they work with against speeders? You know, we get that so much on speeders in different areas of the city. Are they used for catching speeders? Can the cameras be used for catching speeders?
No, and it's my understanding, like the red light violation cameras and all that, that the officer has to be able to testify that they observed the violation. So they are set up to react to speeders or red lights or anything of that nature.
And as far as the FUSA cameras you were just speaking of, I'm just going to assume that that doesn't include if the doorbell cameras are even considered, I guess, real cameras. I mean, I don't know. Just I want to shoot that out there to you, as far as if they are also used in what we do as far as cutting down on activity.
So the way the FUSIS works, it's initiated by the owner of the actual camera. So whatever camera systems are on a private property, they can ask to have those added to the system.
And yes, it does include Ring or any other, yes,
Oh,
it's any type of camera, yes, it does.
Okay, all right, that's good, that's good. All right, thank you,
it can go
thank you.
to cell phones,
Mayor Pro
right?
Tem.
No, it's gotta be, the core has to be plugged into the actual cameras.
Councilmember Kinston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I actually didn't have a question about the camera. Is it okay if I go ahead and ask the other question now? Okay, so one of the questions that I had is going back at the information that was provided. I noticed that there's two categories that aren't mentioned that I wanted to see if we can get a status or an update on. The first one is on teenage runaway, and the second one is on sex trafficking. If that's something that we can look at, because we get notifications, you know, and you see about teenagers and stuff on Facebook that are missing. Is there any approach of anything that the police is doing with that? And then also, if there's particular areas or things to be concerned with sex trafficking in the city?
So I think, of course, you know, we monitor teenage runaways and through our youth services. I need to know specifically, what are you saying? What are you asking for us to provide answers to?
It's just, is there a increase of it, or is it just kind of random that you're seeing, you know, this happening?
I can't answer that right now. I'll come back with the answer.
Okay.
But nothing that has sparked our alert. We have a lot of runaways that are repeat runaways. We haven't, and you know, we have a human trafficking unit as well. So we also specialize in that with regards to training and are proactive with that training. You asked specifically at sexual assault. What else? Was it specifically human trafficking or what?
It was just the human trafficking.
Okay, and that question, are you asking, is there an increase?
Is there increase, decrease? Is it, you know?
Yeah, so you want to talk about it, because so basically those are one of the most difficult crimes to have to investigate.
Okay.
Especially because you need to have the victim willing to share that they're a victim.
Okay.
And involves a lot of partnerships with entities that are not a part of, like, remember I used to have Five Sparrows, that can really work with the victim to provide resources to get out of that cycle. So it is a very difficult crime to monitor, but it is out there. Trying to not just pull the victims out of that lifestyle, but also us focusing on the suspects that are perpetuating the crime. That's a lot of our focus, but we end up, when we catch the suspects, it's difficult to prosecute if the victims are not claiming to be victims, if
Okay.
that's so. But we can see what else we could do to share on our next quarterly report.
Okay,
regarding
thank
that.
you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief and staff, for the presentation. Well, one of the questions you all answered as far as the success rate, but as it relates to the license plate readers, I know you mentioned we at different phases, but for those locations that were the targeted location, are those areas where there's been an increase in crimes, or how did
So
you
we
guys
took-
choose those, identify those locations?
So we took into consideration a couple factors. Number one, we took a look at the current crime trends that were going on, and we realized that we had a lot of crime coming into the city, a lot of people coming in committing violations. So we wanted to make sure that we had avenues of ingress and egress covered as they pertain to the actual city. If you look, we have the 301 corridor, we have the Ramsey Street 295 corridor, we have some of our major thoroughfares such as Morganton and Riley and Cliffdale, not Morgan and Riley, Morgan Road, Cliffdale Road, which are, a lot of people come in off the All-Americans. So as we took a look, we looked at, what kind of crime were we experiencing? How were people actually coming into our city or traveling around our city to commit those crimes? And where we needed to put stuff to form a solid perimeter, and then B, a core group of cameras inside where we get the most bang for our buck as far as the number of vehicles that travel through those intersections.
Okay, so again, like the first phase is just a pyramid of making sure that
Yes,
we're
we
hitting
shored up
every
a-
area. If you coming in, we catching you coming in, going
Yes.
out. Okay, the second question was with the Fusus, camera. If I understood that right, you have to I guess, download the Fusus or
So there's
connect it
actually
with
what they
your?
call a core, which is an attachment, and what that core acts like is a gatekeeper for your camera information. So the information that you choose to share, or the how you choose to share it, it passes through that core or that gate, and it allows us to see that information on the back end. Okay, it's uploaded to a cloud, and then we're able to view that stuff, those videos from the actual cloud. So there's an actual box, and it's called a core unit that keeps that gate, so that it limits exactly what you want us to have and nothing that you don't want us to have.
And is that something that's already in the works, or this is something so how, for myself and other residents, how do I,
So I think I know where you're going with that question. So during our startup meeting the other day, we actually broke out into groups, and we have sort of a community group. And what that community group is identify potential people or locations throughout the city where we'd find the greatest use of cameras or need need some help. And what they would do is they would market to those individuals of, hey, and we have our captains identifying, hey, this is where I need help. This is where we have a lacking in
makes
our
sense.
current existing camera system. This is where I want to market this Fusus in order to get some additional camera footage or help out with an ongoing problem within this certain community. So they would go out, and then, it's an agreement that you would have. Yes, I agree to cooperate, to partner with the city, and based on you attaching that core to your cameras, then you set the parameters on what you want to share. But there is a marketing team for that.
And which means that we're excited as we get up and rolling to get it access. We are also preparing to share it out to the community, how they can register, get a core, and be a part of the Fusus system.
okay, so right now you are just making sure that you're targeting, areas that you would like to tap in versus.
Yes, so part of that community group, each of the district captains, they brought a list of locations where they thought it would be most beneficial for them, and they're developing a marketing strategy to go out and get those partnerships in those areas.
Okay, is it possible, can we get a list or email to it, or?
So here's the thing, that's just the startup. Our goal is to offer it to everybody.
Okay.
So we want residents as well as business registered under the Fusus as a partner with keeping the community safe. So we are in the planning, not just to get us up and rolling, but to use the strategy on how do we market and share with that information with the public, how they can sign up, how they can register, and how they can possibly get a core. So that is up and rolling right now as we speak.
Okay, last question, I'm done. So is there, for the software, is there a fee, or is this something that's free?
So the core is not totally free. It depends on what size core and how much you want to share. So the core has a limit to the number of cameras it can actually process or keep the gate for. Now, bigger cores are out there for more cameras. And they have as small as, I think it was a four camera core system is the smallest they go, but they do have systems that are capable of handling multiple, cameras, 20, 30, 40, 100, as many cores as they need to put together to handle those larger ones. So someplace like the hospital, if they wanted to partner with us, they'd have to have a large core because they have a lot of cameras. But they don't have to share every camera. They can choose which cameras they want to share. Some of the smaller places could have the smaller core. And again, there is a fee associated with that core, and I don't know the exact fee ranges right now, but that's something we can get to you in the future.
Will they be able to register even if they don't get the core?
Yes, even if you don't have a core, what it gives you the opportunity to do is say, hey, we have cameras, so we know that, okay, yes, if we have a crime committed in that area, even though it's not on the FUSIS system, it can be registered through FUSIS, and when we pull up potential video within that area, we can pinpoint the number of potential people that obtain video in that region. We can approach them, and then they can upload it to the cloud, okay, without having the core there. But there is a cloud server that they can upload their videos to where we can review that and check that video for evidentiary value.
And residents, they are able to see that information?
Yes.
To see, to see, okay, and also see.
Exactly. That will save us time as in regards to what we do now is knock on doors and say, do you have a camera? Do you have a camera? That will save time to register to say, I have a camera if you ever need it. Give me a call and here's my registry information.
And that's something we're going to push out through Community Watch and let people know, and we're going to come up with that marketing plan.
Mayor. Okay, last thing, because this is great information. But I hope, Counselor, if in the future, if this is something we plan on doing as far as partnering with different people, I'm hoping that we can, by them helping us, try to provide some type of incentive or help with the funding portion part of it. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So before I go to Councilmember Ingram and Jones, and then we probably need to see if we can accept the report. We appreciate the work you're doing. The core system that you described, the hardware, do they buy that from the provider or from who?
That would actually come through the provider. FUSIS would go out there. They're helping us with that marketing strategy, and they're the ones that actually sell the actual cores. They wouldn't buy that from the police department, no.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Ingram. Is it to make a motion to receive?
Well, my question is paired with to make a motion to receive.
I got a sticky on the motion to receive. So
okay, so I'll go. Thank you all so much. All of you, thank you so much for being here tonight. I have about 3 questions. First question is a kind of a lightweight question. I'm just asking to see if it's anywhere connected. In our last budget cycle, we purchased some pilot kits for littering, cameras for littering. Will that be connected to this at all? No? Okay. All right. My second question is for rape kits. When someone comes forth and says, hey, I've been raped, and we do have rape kits, for them, is there an option for them to opt out of using, or, okay, and if they were to press charges, would they then have to use the rape kit to determine if they were? And I'm asking this because this was recently asked to me, and it was a question that I couldn't even answer. So I'm.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna recommend is you call us.
Okay.
Have a person call us so that we can, because I'm sure there's a bunch of stipulation criteria.
Okay.
And I can't answer a investigative question without knowing all details. So I was probably recommending give us a call so we can either talk to the victim or whoever has a question, so we can do the what if. But it is ideal to have not just all the evidence there with the rape kit or anything else, but all the details of the crime.
Okay, thank you. And they were just asking because of, they were doing research about it. My last question is, and we've been talking about, and I'm glad Mayor Pro Tem mentioned it earlier because I was going to mention it, where people are more concerned about their mental health, and they should be. I've just gotten to my 30s, and I'm in the line of I do what I want when I want, and that's just how it's going to be. And I'm blessed to where I can do that. And so when I see Captain there, and I know his story.
That's Major.
Major, my apologies. Okay, promotion Major, my apologies. And I know his background and his story, and that he still comes in and does this work. often you're getting asked, how is the morale of the force? How is the morale of your staff? And so I'm just going to ask you, how is your morale as the chief of police?
I am super excited to be the chief of police for this city, for this department, because of the men and women, not just sworn but non-sworn, how hard they work, how dedicated they are, and how committed they are. That has me on high. The wellness is another priority. I have, and we have, and the support that you all have had for us. You all have provided us with services for mental health, where we're now, all of our employees have now, on a second year, will have 2 mandatory sessions with a counselor, but they can have as many as they like. We also have other resources for wellness, mental health and wellness, other types of therapy. We've just had a leadership in wellness symposium where we talk about the importance of really taking care of yourself. We have our chaplaincy program that focuses on. We're reevaluating our peer support program to bring that up to par. We are going through right now a strategic plan for our overall wellness as a community in law enforcement, because we realize these are different times and this is a different era, and we cannot continue to ignore suicide in our profession, crisis in our profession, and we have to normalize asking for help. If we are not healthy, there is no way we can keep our community healthy. And it is not normal to see tragedy every single day. We just have to accept that. You all can probably remember when you're in one car accident and can tell that story tenfold. We see tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and then they have to go home. It is not normal. So because we have to recognize it's not normal, we have to recognize, we have to normalize getting care for ourselves. So I'm super excited that I know that we are going to be the leaders in getting wellness for our organization and normalizing that, so that we can stay as vigilant as he is, as supportive they are, and hardworking as we all are. So that's one of my passions, and one of all our passions, recognizing how we support our staff and how we support our profession.
All right, thank you, Chief, and thank you all so much.
All right, thank you. Councilman Jones?
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, you muted yourself, sir.
You muted, Councilman. Hey, Councilman Jones, you're muted.
You're muted.
Can't hear you.
Okay, now, sorry about that. 2 questions. I will make mine 2 very quick. The second one I can get with you at a later time. The first one is, how long is the data from the cameras kept? I understand it may be there through the duration of an investigation, but aside from that, is there something like statutorily mandating how long that you all may keep that data in the cloud system?
Yes, to answer your question, there are statutory retention laws that require
In here.
Oh, everybody muted.
Push.
There, yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear us, sir?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We're gonna say it again.
Thank you.
There are statutory retention laws as they pertain to LPR video, and that's 90 days retention. We have to identify the video that we want to retain as evidence within that 90 days, and then actually put in an order with the courts to have that information sustained and as evidence outside of the server that is collected on for the LPRs.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And my second question, again, I can get this later from you, Chief. In regards to the community-based violent intervention advocates program, just wanted to see how that was coming along, as well as the co-responder model that was being used. And again, for the sake of time, I can get that from
No,
you
I want to
later.
share that right now, sir, because I'm super excited about it. Especially because everyone needs to know we are bringing on our community violence reduction advocate that's going to be recruiting others that we're going to start. About to sign the training for that individual, and then we're going to have for our community a landscape analysis that's going to have you all be a part of it to say does the city of Fayetteville need in regards to community violence reduction, a program, what fits our city. Because our city is different than a Newark or LA or another community. And so we're going to have feedback from the advocate, trained, and we're going to have facilitators come in and talking to us about what do we want to see for our community, and focus on hospital violence, what they can do, what our partners can do. So super excited about that. That's part of one of the reform efforts that we're doing in our city that's different. So super excited about that.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wright.
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to say the chief is super excited about a lot of things tonight.
Sorry,
a lot
sir.
of good things are coming up. And, you know, one of our priorities for our strategic planning is safe city and secure city. And so we want to thank you for the report tonight. Excellent things coming down the pike. And I want to make the motion to receive the citywide camera operating system presentation tonight.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Wright to receive the fourth quarter report and citywide camera operating presentation. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Kinston. Any discussion on the motion? Council, I look to you for your votes. All right. Councilman Hare? Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, it's unanimous. Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Item 9.01, evidentiary hearing. I don't see my verbiage that Mr. Newton normally gives me to read. Don't see it. You saw it? No, that's public hearing, public forum. Madam Attorney, can I make up my own language?
Yes, ma'am.
I just say tell the truth and nothing but the truth to help you guys.
I believe half of your script is on the bottom of the one that I have, so after I do the introduction, I can give you this one.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight we have 3 special use cases that will be presented by staff and the applicants with action to be taken by the City Council. All individuals wishing to speak as a witness should have signed up prior to the meeting, and we do have 3 representatives for each of our 3 applications. If the city clerk would like to swear the individuals in.
I have Ms. Laurie Epler, Mr. George Rose, and Mr. Morgan. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Where did you leave off? Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. Mr. Harmon, please proceed with the case overview and explanation of the specific SUP addressed by the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. The first case that we do have before you tonight is SUP 2201. This is a request for 2 duplexes, 4 units altogether. The properties it's on 2 different properties located at 5473, 5487 Grimes Road, approximately 1.13 acres altogether. This is in Councilman Davis's district. And just to give you an idea of where the property is located, there are 2 separate properties here, and you'll see in a moment they'll have a kind of connecting drive in between the 2. And there's I believe a mobile home currently on one lot and a small home on the other. Those will be taken down for these 2 duplexes. You'll see out here this kind of blank area, that's part of the 295 corridor. kind of give you an idea of part of where we're located. Winterwood Drive here to the south is the closest intersection. Our zoning map currently has this as an SF6 district. It is surrounded by other SF6, mainly single-family detached houses out in this area. The land use plan calls for lower density residential all throughout this area. A couple of photos of the property. As I said, these properties, the two units that are on there currently will be taken out for this use. And these are some of the properties surrounding. To the west is across the street, and this is kind of north and south of the property. As I mentioned before, you've got two properties. Each would have one duplex, so 4 units altogether. A joint drive coming down the middle, accessing both pieces of property. And that is all staff has at this point, and we will turn things over to you, Mr. Mayor, to conduct your evidentiary hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. So I now open the evidentiary hearing, ask the applicants to begin and make their presentation in that case. Madam Clerk, please call your first
Yes,
speaker.
Mayor, we just have one speaker for this item, Miss Laurie Epler.
Good evening, Ms. Epler.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Forgive me, it's way past my bedtime, so if I stumble, just bear with me.
You'll be in good company today.
These folks, these folks are, they own this property. They've recombined it so that they can develop it. What they have there, they've been using for rental property up until now. I think they've owned it. They've bought it in pieces. I think they started buying about 10 years ago, and they've gradually gotten all 3 parcels. We've recombined it for them. They're ready to develop. And like it says, they desire to put 2 duplexes, 1 on each lot. So just to let you know, we do comply with, we feel like we meet the points that we have to meet in order for you to grant the special use permit. Keep in mind that this is SF6. It was R6 prior to UDO zoning. In R6, they would have been allowed to do 2-family, 4-family. They could have done multifamily. They could have done an apartment complex as long as they had their density. So this is kind of a back step for them. They started investing in this property prior to the UDO zoning coming into effect. So we feel like this proposed use is going to comply with all of the city's dwellings, 2 to 4 family, and will be self-contained complex that will not interfere with adjoining properties. This special use complies with all applicable standards in Section 30-4C. They'll have 1 driveway instead of 4 driveways coming off Grimes Road. There'll be 1 driveway going in, and each one of them will be fed off of that common drive. They are 2 units per building. There's 2 entrances allowed on the face of those buildings. They do not face Grimes Road. They will face each other in that common drive. The electric equipment, HVAC equipment, all of that will be screened or located behind the building out of adjacent view of public street. Special use complies with the standards set forth in the City Code of Ordinances. All setbacks will be met for this zoning requirement. The proposed use is compatible with the overall area, as the surrounding area is zoned residential and is comprised of single-family residential homes. It's similar to other properties in the area. There'll be minimal noise. The special use permit for this property will fit right in with its surroundings. There'll be adequate parking on the property. Noise levels should not be altered by this new development. The 2 dwelling units there now will be removed upon approval of this SUP. The special use permit is configured to minimize adverse effects, including visual impacts of the proposed use on adjacent lands. Residential development similar in nature to the surrounding developments. New construction will bring a new feel to the area. As it currently sits, the property is occupied by 2 homes that will be removed if this SUP is approved. And just to let you know, one of those homes is a single-wide mobile home that has been added on to several times. The other one is about a 900 square foot structure that I don't even know if it's inhabitable now. I think it might be vacant right now. It avoids significant deterioration of water and air resources, wildlife habitat, scenic resources, and other natural resources. It'll have minimum effect on wildlife, any of those things. The land's currently flat and has very little trees and has already been developed. With its location, there's little chance of the proposed development affecting the natural resources. Special use maintains safe ingress and egress onto the site and safe road conditions around the site. This use will be in a well-established neighborhood with adequate roads. A driveway will be built in accordance with the attached site plan and Fayetteville City standards. This special use allows for the protection of property values and the ability of neighboring lands to develop the uses permitted in the zoning district. It's residential construction. It shouldn't change the property value of surrounding buildings in a negative way. And the dwellings that are being constructed will fit into the surrounding area's characteristics. This new construction is one thing that the developer and I both are excited about. Is this is going to provide affordable housing while keeping the integrity of the existing neighborhood. It's not going to interfere with that neighborhood whatsoever. And it complies with all other relevant city, state, and federal laws and regulations. The applicant will be required to meet all of the applicable standards. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Epler.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers on this matter?
No, sir.
All right, council, you have any questions before we begin deliberation? Any questions for the applicant? All right, with that, I'll now close the evidentiary hearing and look to you for action, Councilman Davis.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to make a motion that we move to approve the special use permit to allow the construction of 2 to 4 family dwellings subject to conditions identified and submitted, site plans in conformity to the current UDO standards as depicted on the attached site plan, as presented by staff based on the standards of the city's development code and the evidence presented during this hearing, and that the application is consistent with applicable plans because the development is located in a single-family 6 SF6 zoning district. Number 2, that this use complies with the findings listed. And 3, the proposed permit is in the public interest because the proposed SUP does fit with the character of the area.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Davis to approve as stated, seconded by Councilmember Wright. Any discussion on the motion? Council, I look to you for your votes. Those in favor? All right, Madam Clerk, it's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Epler. Thank you. All right, item
Mr. Mayor, the next case we have before you is SUP 2202. Mr. George Rose is representing the owner. This is another special use permit, this time to allow 9 single-family attached dwellings or townhomes in an SF6 zoning district. The property is located at 6322 Rayford Road, actually on Little Drive. The property is 2.25 acres. This is in Councilman Wright's district. And you'll probably recognize this property because it has come before you a couple of times in the last year. The property for many years has been split zoned with commercial activity here on the front and residential on the back. It was rezoned, I believe, during the summer for SF6 back here in the back, and then a little while later, sometime around October, the zoning line was shifted 10 feet to allow the owner to put one more unit into his proposal. Both of those zonings were approved by City Council, and again, so now they're in the second phase of this, coming with the townhome proposal. Currently, again, this is an SF6 district. Our land use plan, while it calls for this area to be commercial, it has been residential, this half of the property, for a number of years. And like I said, in fact, was rezoned commercially to a different residential district over this summer. Just to give you an idea of what the owners are looking to do, again, it is 9 attached dwelling units, which are what we refer to as townhomes. And they'll just kind of, there'll be a building A and a building B, 4 units in one, 5 in the other. Just to give you an idea of what the property looks like, again, it is currently a split zone property. You've got the truck accessories business here on the front section facing Rayford Road, and then the residential section facing Little Drive here in the back. Properties that surround it to the immediate north are a set of duplexes. To the west, some single-family residential, as to the east as well. And then, of course, again, to the south, the commercial activity on the same property. Mr. Mayor, that concludes staff's presentation, and we'll turn it over to you for the evidentiary hearing at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. With that, we will open the evidentiary hearing. Ask the applicant to please come forth and begin presentation. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. We just have one speaker, Mr. George Rose.
Good evening, Mr. Rose.
If you'll come to this microphone right here, Mr.
Okay.
Rose.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time tonight. I know we're running late, but I appreciate you allowing me to make this presentation. I think the owner saw a demonstrated need for affordable housing. He did have the property. It was zoned commercially, and that's why he went forward with the residential zoning to provide an opportunity for him to build some affordable housing there. I feel like we meet all of the 8 findings that we are required to meet. Special use will comply with all the applicable standards. We've been working with through the TRC process and addressing those initial comments, none of which were of any significance. Special use is compatible with the character of the surrounding lands. There isn't a existing attached single-family duplexes next door. Special use avoids significant adverse impact on surrounding lands. There's a single access point on a very low volume city street. Special use is configured to minimize adverse visual impacts. We have landscape and fence buffers as we're required to by the ordinances. Special use avoids significant deterioration of water and air resources. We're meeting the requirements of the stormwater ordinance, utilizing a treatment basin for stormwater. So we've got that resolved. Special use maintains safe ingress and egress. We have one access point, and that's been reviewed by traffic services and no issues there. Special use allows for protection of property values. Again, it's compatible with adjacent properties. We did speak with some of the residents on the street when we did the initial rezoning, and none of them had any issues with it. They were in fact excited about new construction coming on the street, and the fact that they're not here in opposition, I think, tells you that they are in support of the project. And then the special use complies with all of the relevant city, state, and federal laws. So be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Council, any questions for the applicant before we begin deliberation? Okay. That we will close the evidentiary hearing and look to you, Councilman Wright.
Mr. Mayor, I approve the special use permit, or I move to approve the special use permit to allow the construction of the 9 single-family attached dwellings, townhomes, subject to the condition identified in the submitted site plan. and conforming to the current Unified Development Ordinance standards as depicted on the attached site plan, as presented by staff based on the standards of the city's development code and evidence presented during the hearing, and that the application is consistent with the applicant plan because, number one, development is located in a single-family FS10 zoning district. Number two, that this use complies with the finding listed. And number three, proposed permit is in the public's interest because of the proposed SUV does fit with the character of the area. And also, it meets all 8 findings of fact.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Wright to approve as stated, seconded by Councilmember Dawkins. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, show of hands. All right, Madam Clerk, it's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Rose. Mr. Harmon, long time no see.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back. The last evidentiary hearing you have for the evening is SUP 2109. This is one that's kind of been going for a little while. The owner, Mr. Morgan, who will be speaking to you in a moment, it took him a little while after he initially applied because he purchased a little additional property so that he could go from 3 townhomes to 4. So that is what we're looking at tonight, more single-family attached townhome dwellings. 4 at 611 Law Road, and this is in Mayor Pro Tem Jensen's district. Just to give you an idea of where this is located, if you follow Law Road back to the west, it comes out to Ramsey Street, a little off the screen here. The property next door is another kind of a quadplex unit. It's hard to tell from the aerial view. And then you've got some other apartments here to the west as well along Law Road. And then there's some other duplexes scattered in the neighborhood as well. Currently, we do have SF10 zoning on this particular property. It is in our land use plan shown as low-density residential. And this is a copy of the proposed site plan for the development, and this is the elevations for what Mr. Morgan's looking to do. That will conclude staff's presentation, Mr. Mayor, at this point, and you can open the evidentiary hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Having listened to, at this time, I would ask that the applicant would come forth and give us his presentation.
Here's a
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elijah Morgan. I'm the applicant for this application. Currently, I'm requesting a special use permit for 611 Law Road for townhomes. After all the assessment of the 8 findings, I believe that everything meets standards and is adequate for this area. The special use is compatible with the character of the surrounding lands. There's multiple multifamily units on this street. It fits the area pretty well. It's a new construction building. At first, I didn't have enough adequate land to get this project completed, so I talked to a few neighbors, and everyone was willing to do it. I was able to get the extra land that I needed to complete it, so I didn't have any opposition getting it. The special use avoids significant deterioration of water and air resources. There's no ponds or lakes or anything on this land property, so it doesn't affect any animals or any species. The special use will protect property values and ability and neighborhood lands to develop the use permitted in the zoning district. The residential townhome buildings fit. It doesn't change the property value of the surrounding buildings in any negative way, and I believe it holds the standard well. The special use comply with all other relative city and state and federal laws that are required to meet. We fit with all the setbacks and standards that was put forth to us. That's really all I have.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for the applicant? All right. Madam Clerk, any other speakers?
No, sir.
All right. So with that, we'll close the evidentiary hearing. Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the special use permit to allow the construction of 4 single-family attached dwelling unit townhomes, subject to the conditions identified in submitted site plans and conforming to the current UDO ordinance standards on the attached site plan as presented by staff based on standards of the city's development code and the evidence presented during the hearing. And that the application is consistent with applicable claims because, 1, the development is located in single-family 10 zoning district, 2, that this use complies with the findings listed, and 3, the proposed permit is in public interest because the proposed SUP does fit with the character of the area. For this motion to approve, the 8 findings below must be met. I need to say all those, right?
No.
Okay. So, if approved, the special use permit shall become effective with the approval of the order of findings by the city council. The SUP shall expire 1 year from its effective date if a building permit is not issued within that time.
So there's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Jensen to approve based on the 8 findings of facts as listed, seconded by Councilmember Dawkins. Any discussion on the motion? Council, those in favor, show of hands. All right, Madam Clerk, it's unanimous as well. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Council, item 10.01 is the public hearing. Individuals desiring to speak at the public hearing must have signed up to speak with the city clerk by name and address before 7 p.m. this evening. 15 minutes will be allowed for each side of the issue at the public hearing. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, unless by previous arrangement a single spokesperson is designated, in which case the spokesperson may use the entire 15 minutes. When the clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, clearly state your name and address for the record. You then may begin to address the council. When you're notified, when you're down to 30 seconds, you'll be notified, and at the end of your time, you will be notified that your time has expired. So with that, we'll stop. Ms. Baptiste?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Jennifer Baptiste, Planning and Zoning Division Manager. This is annexation 21-07. The applicant and owner of the property is T&W Investments LLC. The request is to annex 5 parcels along Cope Street. This annexation is related to an initial zoning to MR5CZ, which was presented to council on the consent agenda. The location is Cope Street, just south of Owen Drive, and the acreage is approximately 0.83 acres for all 5 parcels. This annexation is a contiguous annexation. These parcels do touch the existing city limit lines. The intended use for the parcels are to develop a residential development of 9 townhome rental units with an office. And the reason for annexation is to access the PWC services. As you can see from the vicinity map, the properties are located on the east side of Cope Street, just to the south of Owen Drive, before Owen Drive meets Cumberland Road. The subject property is mainly vacant. They do have 1 parcel in which there's an abandoned housing structure on it, which the applicant will remove if this annexation goes through, so that they can completely develop the property. The major considerations for the annexation: is it contiguous with the current boundaries for the city limit? Yes, it is. The petition was signed by all owners. The city is able to provide services, and PWC is able to provide services. The options for this annexation is to either, one, adopt the annexation ordinance with an effective date of February 28th, or two, adopt the annexation ordinance with an effective date of June 30th, 2022. A third, adopt the annexation ordinance with an effective date of June 30th, 2023. And four, do not adopt the annexation petition, or five, table the annexation request. Staff is recommending that City Council go with the first option of adopting the ordinance effective February 28th of 2022. Are there any questions of staff?
All right, Councilman Wright.
Yeah, I see on the overview here, the land, and we're talking about bringing it into the city.
Yes,
but the land has not been developed or anything. Are those houses still on the land I'm looking at? And what is the time frame of construction, do you?
This structure here, as you can see from the picture that was taken by staff, is still there. This is an abandoned building, and it will be removed if the annexation goes through and the development plans are approved. It's already been through TRC, so they have received preliminary approval for their development plans.
Right, so I'm seeing a number of buildings on this overview, if you look at it closely.
This aerial is a little bit older.
Okay, I got you. So it's only one structure now?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Baptiste? All right, Madam Clerk, any speakers?
No, sir.
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ingram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. I move we adopt the annexation ordinance with an effective date of February 28, 2022, and include approval of the final action consistent with the recommendation of the Zoning Commission.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Ingram, seconded by Councilmember Dawkins. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Council, those in favor, show of hands. All right, Madam Clerk, this unanimous. Motion is approved. So, Councilmember Ingram, you had a couple asks of the administrative items.
I did, unless Councilmember Kingston, or did you want to do it?
You go ahead and do it.
Okay. I'd like to request that the administrative items 11.02, 11.03, and 11.04 come back to our next work, our next work session, or where it would see fit, given our time
All right,
constraints.
there's a motion by Councilmember Ingram to push those items to the work session. It does need a consensus of council to do so. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Kinston. Any discussion?
Well, I'm concerned about March.
Yeah.
The agenda comes out in a couple of days. Can it wait till April, or is there
we said
something pressing?
Well, we said first available. She left some
just
wiggle
first
room.
I
available.
said whatever
Next available.
would be, consistent with our time.
All right. All right. Any other questions? Council, look to you for your votes to move these items to work session. All right. Motion carries. Council, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Y'all have a good evening.